Give me coffee in the morning, gotta have the caffeine. Wake me up, shake me up, dip me like a lassie. One sip, two sips, and I'm feeling so alive. Coffee in the morning, it's the best way to survive. Woke up in the morning, sleepy eyes yawning. Jumped out of bed, started the day, opened the curtains. Felt the cool breeze, the sun shining on my face. But something was missing, I needed my job to chase. Give me coffee in the morning. Give me coffee in the morning, gotta have the caffeine. Wake me up, shake me up, dip me like a lassie. One sip, two sips, and I'm feeling so alive. Coffee in the morning, it's the best way to survive. Woke up in the morning, sleepy eyes yawning. Jumped out of bed, started the
Oh, I still had yesterday's thumbnail attached to it. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
Welcome in, Forrest. Thanks for joining. You got to leave in about 45 minutes. That's good. I hope all goes well this morning. My little visitor outside the window left.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I looked up and it was gone, and I went and peeked out and I don't see him. Okay, so everything's good to go now. Oh, goodness. Like, are they, like my first thought was, wait a minute, did I do something on the internet y'all didn't like?
You've been reported for cussing like a
Reporting?
sailor.
Right? Right. Come on out of here, man. That's free speech.
I was watching.
Actually, it ain't illegal to cuss them out, is it?
No, it's not actually. That happens all the time, and
right.
And they actually, if they get butthurt about somebody cussing them out or flipping them off, then, and like I said, I watch those videos all the time. Then that's on you, dude, for getting butthurt. Just ignore those people.
It's freedom of speech, and as long as I don't lay a hand on you, I'm pretty good, y'all. I'm joking with Joe because there was a lawman parked outside my house a little bit ago, right outside my window. He had just pulled over on the side of the road taking care of business, but he's moved on now. It's like, what you doing out there, lawman? Lord, if I just because I was reporting honestly on cases locally or something, I didn't know what was going on. Oh, anyway, welcome in, Lindsay. Good morning. Good morning. Got some case updates to get to here, and I want to show you guys something about that Michigan mom. She had her arraignment in court. The judge placed her under apparently the state of Michigan and the types of charges she had at the moment, she was still required a bond, but the judge set the bond at like $250 million cash bond, and then ordered her that if you are able to make that bond, you have no contact with your children, because they
Whoa, $250 million? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Whoa.
Said it's so high it's unattainable, right? And it's good because by law she had to set a bond under whatever their statutes there for child abuse, child neglect, whatever she was charged with. I have the full arraignment, but we're not going to watch it. We're going to watch a couple of news clips instead that gives us the gist of it. But I do have the full arraignment. It's only like 8.5, well, almost 9 minutes long, but it's uneventful. She did plead not guilty, but yeah, we'll take a look at that. And a couple of other interesting things. A sister-in-law has come forward and said a couple of things. A neighbor has spoke out and said a few things. Yeah, I liked it too, Forrest, because like I said, they had to. It was required by law that she get a bond, but the judge said it's so ridiculously high, she's not getting out. And good for her, because this woman was apparently living large while her children suffered daily. She was a freak and didn't close her Facebook down, and I found it. And then lo and behold, I was watching this news clip earlier this morning that I was going to use, and they found it too. You'll see that she was living her best. She was a part of an industry. I'll say it that way. And yeah, it's insane. And I have some news about the father of the children as well that we'll get to. Apparently he was like in prison for a while, but he got out and tried to get the kids, or tried to make contact, tried to get to see them. We have a news article we're going to read about that. Yeah, and then we're going to jump into some CC Moore. You know who that is, right?
I do not. I'm not familiar with CC Moore.
Oh, CC Moore is the person who developed IgG.
IgG,
CC
you know me.
IgG. She knows her stuff. She's very good at it. And I'm going to present a podcast she was on. It's called the Presumptive Podcast. It's co-hosted with Sarah Azari. She's a defense attorney who you see on Twitter. Well, you may not see her, but she's on Twitter, and she's based out of, I think she's in California. And it's also co-hosted with Alex Murdaugh's defense counsel. What's his name? I can't even remember his damn name because I don't really care for him. But their co-host on this show, but Cece was joined the show like a long time ago, like a year ago, if I'm not mistaken. But she says some interesting things in there, and I think it's good for people to see what she has to say on the IgG and how it works. You know what I mean? And she also did her own personal private tree on Koberger, and she says some interesting things there. So she doesn't tell you any details. There's something in there, but we'll take a look at all that as well.
Ooh, how did she get data to be able to do her own research on that?
Oh, look, this lady, all she needs is names. Okay.
Oh, wow.
She's very good. She's cracked a lot of cases, cold cases. She's helped exonerate people. She's helped convict people with tips, right? So we'll take a look at it. But yeah, CC Moore has been around for a very, very long time. A lot of people are familiar with her and some are not, but I wanted to present that because I think what she has to say is pretty cool. And we have some other stuff we can take a look at too. Yeah, CC Moore, 12, we're going to take a look at a couple of things she did. I got 2 different pieces on her that I wanted to play so that everybody could just, agree with her or not. She's going to explain the inner workings of what they do. So I thought that would be a good thing to take a look at since we're all about that IgG in Idaho. And like she had stated, people mistakenly think sometimes that this was the first active investigation IgG was used in, because they mistakenly believe it's just for cold cases, but that's not the case. She'll go into that. So yeah, Brian Koberger wasn't the first one that's ever been used on. He's just the first one testing it, right? Testing the validity of it and the legalities of it.
Right, because Anne is really doing her job. I mean, people can hate on her if they want. They can point out the fact that her last appearances, she kind of seemed off a little bit, but man, she's got a workload and she's testing it, and it needs to be tested. Like, if he's the guy or if he's not the guy, I don't care. I want the evidence tested, and I want it to be legal when we convict somebody, like we didn't get in certain other cases. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, IgG, and like she's going to explain to you, and even this defense attorney tries to come at her about it. She's going to tell, it is just a tip, and it could be wrong. Therefore, you have to have that direct match at some point. You can't. That's the reason IgG is not brought into court. It's not evidence against the client.
Oh, so it's just an investigative tool. Okay, I gotcha.
Exactly.
I'm picking it out. I gotcha.
Yeah, and so once you point law enforcement into the direction of a specific person, then they have to go not build a fake case. We did all that with in this case, and then they got Koberger's swab out of his mouth, direct match to the sheath. So IgG was simply a tool that pointed toward, hey, this is a guy you should go look at. Oh, not only him, the 4 low match cousins, other people. That is why the IgG stuff has been sealed. People thought it was because, well, the FBI claimed they destroyed their work. They can't show it and can't prove it and all this stuff. Maybe they did. I have no clue what the FBI does. I'm no expert on the damn FBI. I know they do a lot of things we do not care to know about. I don't want to know all they can do, because sometimes what all they can do helps catch bad guys. But anyway, I'm not here going to debate what they can and cannot do. That's not my battle to take up. But yeah, once it's like using any other source of leads, that could potentially point to someone. But the reason that all that IgG stuff was sealed was to protect everybody on the tree. Now that these 4 brothers have been brought up, you don't think there's armchair sleuths out there wondering who they are, where they at, where can it, what, all that? They don't deserve to be put out there, especially if they didn't do anything but show up on a family tree. So there's a lot of people on the tree they're trying to protect, and that's why. And then a lot of it is sealed with that IgG stuff. And I get that,
Well, even if they have done quote unquote something wrong, like say one of those 4 brothers like grows weed in his backyard in a place where you're not allowed to do it. I mean, and the FBI gets onto him because of this IgG tree, and they scope out his place and they find his operation. Is that fruit of the poison tree? Is that fruit of the poison tree?
That I don't even think they'd care at that point. They might call a local authority and say, hey, look, that dude's growing some weed in the backyard. Y'all might want to check him out. I don't think they would, because they looked into these brothers. And, somebody the other day said something, and I was like, look, you don't think that they verified, even though they were low matches, and they asked one to give up a sample. And I think the reason they did that was they were going to do a backdoor entry and use a fake profile, go in as a private citizen, pretend to be a private citizen and upload shit. But that's my theory. But if you don't think for a second, because they Googled these guys and looked into them to go and arrest them for any reason, right? Or question them at that point, because they were such low matches. But you don't think they're able to look at their net and verify where they live? If they're out of state, do they live near the crime scene? What were they driving? Do they own a white Elantra? Do they, can we verify their whereabouts on the night of this crime? All that can be verifiable if they're investigated. And I don't understand why people are like screaming about, well, it still could have been one of those brothers, it's like, okay. But, And I know yesterday I was like astonished because there was a certain person out there. Hang on. Okay, my sister's let me know my brother took my dad appointments at 1. My dad's going today back over to Birmingham, Alabama to get his cochlear implant activated. They put it in a couple weeks ago, and he had to wait, I think it was 3 weeks to go back, and they activate it. He still can't hear as of this morning. So hopefully when they get this out of his other ear, but they only did it in one ear. So hopefully when they get that activated today, our daddy can hear us again. We are hoping. So,
yeah. So right now he has like 0% hearing, and this is supposed to improve it. How much?
Yeah, cochlear implants are really amazing, and I wish he'd got it done years ago, but he really wasn't. He didn't even know about it back then. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it wasn't until he only had one good ear all my life. And when that ear went out, that's when he's like, okay, no, I'm not having this. He can't hear his hunting dogs. He can't hear us. He can't, and it was very super aggravating. But he went to a specialist over in Birmingham, and they've done surgery on both ears. And yeah, so the best ear, they put the implant in. And the other ear, they thought he may be able to try to hear out of a little bit, but nothing yet. So hopefully when they activate the implant today, his hearing will be able to come back so we can
That's
talk to our
awesome.
daddy. I know we're excited. We can't wait. I hope for his sake, because he's tired of it. He's tired of not being able to hear us. We had to teach him how to text just so we could check in on him. So allegedly the brother they called is dead now. Allegedly the brother they called. Oh, good Lord. I'm not even gonna. What, somebody killed him? Is that what I mean? Allegedly. Okay, let me get back to what I was going to say a second ago. There was a specific creator I saw go on another creator's channel and spend about 4 hours going through all the BS. Then went back to their channel and went live at least another 5 hours going on and on. And I'm like, okay, so when people start coming into my chat, I'll be aware of where they were getting that information from. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know nothing about those brothers. I'm not here to dox those brothers or talk. You know what I mean? I think that's wrong. And a lot of speculation and rumor in this case is the problem. They were low matches. Y'all, would everybody feel better if they went and swabbed them all, without probable cause? If they didn't have a white Elantra and they weren't in the area and their numbers didn't show up in the geofencing, you have no probable cause to go now collect their DNA. You can go follow them around and collect a cigarette butt or a water bottle, but why would you if there's such an extreme low match? And then when that was through Othram, and then when the FBI got it, they did more intense work, as we all know, and it came back to Brian Koberger, and that was a direct match to the sheath. So it'd be different if one of those brothers lived near the crime scene and also drove a white Elantra, or was roommates with his cousin Brian. Do you know what I mean? It would be a different situation to me, but it's not the case. So, and it's like even I think when I was on 12 gauge the other night, we were talking about this a little bit. People read the document and they were reading that one case that they were citing about semen being found. Even Firefly noted it too, that a lot of channels thought that meant semen was found at the crime scene in Idaho 4. And we're like, what? No, it clearly states that's a case they were citing, giving an example. It had nothing to do with the Idaho crime scene. So, if y'all can't read a damn document, I don't know what to tell them. Isn't that crazy? I don't know where you got your information from, V. You didn't elaborate. You just said it was rumor and speculation, so I have no clue where you heard that one of them was deceased. Rest in peace, brother. I don't know what else to say. I don't know where you got it from. So, and I'm not saying you got it off of a live, because I couldn't tell you what all she said. I didn't listen. I just heard some of the ranting, and it was like, oh, nothing's changed over there. So anyway, who needs to be called out for living her best life while her babies were in horrible, horrendous conditions? Let me mute out while I pull it up.
Yeah, it's so people say there are no comparisons between this case and Delphi, and there are a couple that I notice, and one of those is that people get established in their camps, and they
That's the
will.
only comparison. Yeah. Well, go ahead though. I'll
Yeah.
hear you out.
No, that's it. That's where I was going with it.
And that's in every case. Look at the Sebastian Rogers case.
Karen Reed.
Yeah, that's just the way YouTube is for some reason, and Twitter, and it's ridiculous. And I don't look, when the crowd all goes to the right, I'm the one going to the left, and that's just that's me. That's just the way
Yep.
I am.
Yep.
I don't like when I decided I was going to cover this case, because I didn't just start covering Idaho. People need to be real clear on that. I'm very well schooled in this case. I've been following it since day one. I've read every single document that's ever come out, watched every single court hearing that's ever been out. So I know, and I used to visit a lot of channels, didn't we, Jeff H? Putting out a lot of bogus BS. Went down many, 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 many rabbit holes, and I'm over it. So I base what I talk about here completely out of court documents. If some speculation and theory comes up out of that document that we discuss, fine and dandy. But people want to come in with certain things, I may have to debunk it for them. I don't know. I'm still hearing very odd stories. I just heard one the other night that somebody was trying to get everybody to go, go look at the black truck video. Let me show you how they came up with that, and then see what you think. Okay, everybody can see the screen there. So this is an update on that Michigan mom. Like I said, she had an arraignment. Judge put her on a $250 million bond, and she had pled not guilty. So let's start with this.
7 News Detroit starts right now with a breaking news alert.
We begin with that breaking news from Pontiac, where a mother accused of abandoning her 3 kids for nearly 5 years has pleaded not guilty. Thank you for joining us at noon. I'm Allie Hoxie. In the last half hour, Kelly Bryant pleaded not guilty to 3 counts of first-degree child abuse. As far as bond, the judge said that she finds Bryant to be, quote, a continued danger to the children, setting her bond at $250 million cash. If she does post that bond, she will be prohibited from contacting her children. Bryant is due back in court next month. Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald says the children suffered unimaginable abuse, stating that the children were living in squalor. Yesterday, employees from the Oakland County Sheriff's Office wore hazmat suits to clean out the house. This case has left so many people in disbelief.
Everybody's upset about it, like, oh my God, this is right in our neighborhood. How could something like this happen?
Now, that is a question that we have heard from so many people over the last few days. 7 News Detroit reporter Kiera Hay is in Pontiac breaking down the details of this case and what comes next.
This is one of those stories that's going to stick with me for a really long time. In my head, I keep replaying the Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard saying that the 15-year-old boy had to escape the home because he wanted to feel the grass. His mother telling him and his 2 other sisters that they could never leave the home and never answer the door. Well, now we're learning that the mother is the one who could have her freedom stripped away for the rest of her life. Kelly Marie Bryant is now charged with 3 counts of first-degree child abuse for allegedly abandoning her 3 children aged 15, 13, and 12 for nearly 5 years. With no running water in the home, piles of trash, feces, and mold were present wall to wall, with officials wearing hazmat suits to clean it out. Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald saying the children struggled to brush their teeth and flush the toilet at the
comments coming in, guys, and I do appreciate them, and I will address them all just as soon as we're done with this piece, okay? I promise. And we're all good, V. I love you, girl.
Hospital because they hadn't done it in so long. Well, now we're learning how Bryant will plead to the charges brought against her, but McDonald warns more people could be next.
Morally, there is plenty of responsibility to go around for how this was allowed to happen. However, these 3 kids were entrusted to the care of their mother, Kelly Bryant, and the evidence suggests that she effectively abandoned them to a revolting pit of refuse and squalor.
Now, this is just the first court trial and many to come in this horrifying story. Of course, 7 News Detroit will continue to follow it all the way through. In Pontiac, I'm Kiera Hay.
Okay, so that was just like what had happened during the arraignment, and I kind of told you guys about that before we watched it. I do have another 2 things I want to show you about that, but before I do, let me get up to it. Where did it go? Maybe it. Okay, so 4 pit bulls across America. Y'all let Delphi scare you off. No, sir. I'm not scared of anything, especially Delphi. What I don't like right now there's enough people out there still reporting on it. And I was going to do a show last weekend, but I didn't have enough information for myself to want to do it yet. I am aware of all the new filings and everything going on, but it's some of these cases at some point I have to back off for a few minutes because they get frustrating. And I was seeing things happening from both sides of Delphi that I didn't want to get into, and that happens with the Idaho 4 at times. But no, sir, nobody is scared off of Delphi, because what is there to be scared of? Can I ask you that? So, no, nobody's scared off. I'm just, I was just a little over it for a little bit. V, those alternate suspects, that's interesting. That could pertain to the 4 brothers. It could pertain to the blood on the handrail. We don't really know what that pertains to yet, but I do know. She's like, don't read that, Salty. But let me see if she had another comment. Yeah, she's not here to rile anyone up. I'm excited for the alternative suspects theory. If the judge allows it in, he better. It depends on what that is. Do you know what I mean? Does it concern those 4 brothers who were so low matches? I mean, if Brian hadn't been, you will see CC talk about that. If Brian's Kohberger swab had not been a direct match to that profile from the sheath, he wouldn't be sitting in jail right now. And then they would have had to pursue those alternate suspects, right, a little closer. So we're going to take a look at that docket. None of those documents have dropped or uploaded to the docket yet, but they are in the case summary, and I will show you guys that in a minute. Let me pull her down, and I wanted to show you the next thing. Any comments there, Joe? Was you about to say something?
No, I'm good. Keep going.
All right.
I'm just trying to figure out what 4 Pitbulls thinks my story is.
Your story about what? What did he say? What do you mean Salty and I aren't scared off? Oh, that was you. What did he say? It's your story, Joe. I'm just here to support. Well, we appreciate the support, but what do you mean?
I did start my channel.
It's Joe's story, like Delphi?
I did start my channel after I attended, the August 1st hearing in Delphi, I think, or around that time, and it was central to that. So, but I'm not sure what people think my story is. So I'm interested in that because I accept criticism. I will openly accept criticism. 100%.
Oh, I wonder if he thinks you only started your channel because of Delphi or something. I don't know. I started my channel for true crime, and so I will cover many different cases here. Some channels get so dug in they can't get away from that one case. Like, there's literally creators who spent the past 2 years doing nothing but Idaho 4. No matter what, no matter how crazy it was, how rumorish it was, how documented it was, whatever, it was all a free-for-all, and there's some channels that only do Delphi, and I appreciate those channels, but that's not my channel. Joe can speak for himself. But anyway, so I want to get back to this and before we go into Kohberger stuff, because this, I think, red flags, people. Notice the damn red flags when they're happening around you. How can we as grown-ups, continue to ignore red flags our whole entire lives, especially when it comes to poor children? Maybe because you said you didn't know if he was guilty or innocent. So what's wrong with saying that, though? We don't know. That trial was bogus as hell. A lot of bad things were happening, and we can't be sure they got the right guy because we couldn't even watch the damn trial. We couldn't even see the exhibits. We couldn't see the bridge guy video. We had to rely on reporting from within the courtroom, and they all did the best they could, and they all had a little different take because they all saw, depending on where you were sitting, you may have seen more or less than the other person. So I will never dig in if a client or a suspect's innocent or guilty. You know what I mean? I don't think that's keeping an open mind. And I'll tell you what bothers me the most about Delphi right now. You come out with an Odinist theory that I could totally get behind because it was part of that investigation. And we found a lot of stuff on that Odinism and the fact that you had these guards and the Odinists and all that. Now we're back to Ron Logan and Keegan Kline. Which is it? One or another? Because Ron Logan and Keegan Kline have only been tied to inappropriate materials on children that they enjoyed. So that's my only at this case right now. And V, I would love to know who you think them alternate suspects are. You think it's in frat boys, girl? You think it? Anyway, let's play this. Let me pull the screen up. This is a sister-in-law, apparently. I think she had 5 children total. It may have been just 4. One of them went to live with her father at some point, and the other 3 got left alone. So I don't know which aunt this is, but we're going to give her a play.
We all knew she was a bad parent, but
we all knew she was a bad parent. Did y'all hear that?
Yes.
I don't think nobody really realized this was going on.
Charlene Bryant is the former sister-in-law to 34-year-old Kelly Bryant, now facing child abuse charges after investigators say they found 3 of her kids living alone in squalor for several years at this Pontiac townhouse on Lydia Lane. Charlene has not been in contact in years and has loads of questions now.
I just don't know how the family don't know when they were so close.
Oakland County prosecutor Karen McDonald charged Kelly Bryant with 3 counts of child abuse in the first degree, which could mean life in prison if convicted. All of this after police say they found 3 of Bryant's 4 kids, a 15-year-old boy and his 2 sisters, ages 12 and 13, living in horrific conditions.
Her daughters were hiding in a bathroom that was filled with feces, piles of trash, and completely non-functional, while her son was hiding in another room. Police were astonished to find anyone in the location because it appeared to be uninhabitable, with piles of garbage and refuse several feet high, including large amounts of human excrement.
The prosecutor says Bryant lived at the home with all 4 kids back in 2019, but later moved out, leaving 3 of her children abandoned while one of the kids went to live with their dad. Detectives say the landlord called police to the home, worried for Bryant's welfare after not getting a rent payment since last October. That's when the kids were found, shaken, scared, and covered in feces, according to the prosecutor.
Honestly, I thought the grandmother was taking care of the children.
That's the last you heard?
Yeah, that's the last. You went 4 or 5 years without seeing your grandchildren. There was no questions.
We stopped by the Pontiac home of Bryant's extended family, where the police eventually took the kids. We wanted to talk to the adults. Hi, how are you?
No, sir, no comment.
Is there anything you'd like to say, sir? No comment given there. We also searched Bryant's Facebook page, which was easy to find and not set to private. Her content shows her modeling various outfits for the camera.
She's gonna claim she couldn't afford to take care of her kids, but you got your hair done, you got your nails done, you got new clothes on all your pictures. Come on now.
What do you think should happen at this point?
She needs to go to prison and never see her kids again. Them kids need to go to someone that's gonna take care of them.
But we begin tonight with questions.
Well, they all knew she was a bad parent, but not. And she's right. If you don't see your grandbabies for 5 years and you just are told, oh, they're with a babysitter, Casey Anthony did that shit with her mom. She's with the babysitter. Casey, where's Kaylee? With the babysitter, and Cindy finally got tired of hearing that excuse. But that's what apparently this lady was running around telling people who ever asked about her kids. All right, this next piece is going to be from a neighbor who spoke about what he saw going on over there, or didn't see, both. Okay.
Questions still swirling regarding 3 children that investigators say were abandoned for years inside a Pontiac home. Where was the mom living that whole time? Welcome to 7 News Detroit at 6. I'm Carolyn Clifford.
And I'm Mike Duffy. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, Kelly Bryant is facing federal charges of child abuse after investigators discovered her children living in filth and squalor for years. And today, our team found out where Bryant may have been living.
And that's not all. 7 News Detroit reporter Sarah Michaels is also listening to the connections with the kids before.
Up until this point, many of us believed that the 3 children living in this home had no contact with anyone except for their mother for nearly 5 years. Well, today we learned that at least a handful of times they did call out to a neighbor. Was it just that one time?
Maybe 2 or 3 times.
A father himself, Jamar Johnson, tells me he felt the need to share that he heard the 3 kids abandoned in squalor in this Pontiac home. For 6 months, he has lived 2 doors down, and occasionally they yelled out their window to him.
Just, they say, hey, nice car. But, and I might wave back at them, but that's it. There's no way that I could have known that they were in a terrible situation.
Johnson says how could he know that the room the children were calling from was stacked 4 feet high with mold, feces, and trash. He says he never saw them outside, but he saw their mother, 34-year-old Kelly Marie Bryant.
She would be outside for hours and hours with a friend.
Johnson says Bryant was always in a car with a friend. He never saw her go inside, and he wonders who was that friend? Did they know who Bryant was hiding?
She's from here, she's from there. We don't know where she resides.
So many have been wondering where Bryant herself lived while her children sat in isolation. Court documents show 2 addresses. At one of them, I talked to a woman who confirmed Bryant was living here.
Were you guys living together?
The house is about 6 minutes away from where Bryant's children were. The woman behind the door telling me that Bryant always told them the kids were with their dad, and Bryant, 18 and 12, are currently staying with their maternal grandpa. Over the phone, their paternal grandpa, Samuel White, tells me he and the kids' father have been trying to see the kids for years.
But it just hurt because it's not the fact that she had to take them through that. Why would she do that and that wasn't the situation?
White says that he personally asked Bryant to bring the kids around. The answer was always no, begging the final question, and perhaps the biggest question, why would she do this?
How are you guys coping with that?
I mean, it's sickening because it was like we wasn't running from the situation. We always asked about them. They doing all right, but it's a lot of scar there. It's a lot of scars.
Bryant will be back in court March 4th for a probable cause conference. In Pontiac, Sarah.
So she goes back to court in March. It's crazy to think that she lives 6 minutes away from where her kids were living. Isn't that crazy?
How does that make sense on any level at all?
Exactly. And when they were cleaning out the home, I watched footage of the teams that were cleaning out the home. There was I couldn't even tell you how many Little Caesars, it looked like Little Caesars pizza boxes to me, that were coming out of that house. As she was, in the beginning, she was ordering food and then Instacart stuff, and then it eventually tapered down to just a loaf of bread. There was no running water in the apartment. The toilets wouldn't work. And then the landlord hadn't received a rent payment since October, and he actually called the police to go over there and do a welfare check on her. And that's when they discovered the kids. They thought they honestly thought when they entered the apartment, it was an abandoned apartment. The little boy was the 15-year-old boy was hiding in one room, and the 2 girls, I think they were 13 and 14, were hiding in that nasty bathroom because she had threatened those kids to never ever go outside. And there was let me see if I got that. Let me pull my thing back up. Sorry, my playlist went away. So they said that the 15-year-old actually, they only saw him come out twice, and one of the times from what the investigators have said, I think during the press conference, was he went outside because he wanted to feel the grass. And another time a neighbor saw him go check the mail. Other than that, the kids have told authorities that she told them never to go outside that apartment and never answer the door. And in the press conference, they stated that at some point she's got no mental defense. This lady was living large. She knew exactly what she was doing. Even if they try it, I hope Michigan don't fall for it, because it's ridiculous. I forgot what I was going to tell you. It was about the press conference, what they were saying in the press conference. I had the full press conference, but it's just a lot of stuff we already have heard and seen. So that's how I learned there was a dad in the picture, because people were like, where's the dad? Where's the dad? But let me show you how this woman was living. She deserves that $250 million bond, because and she deserves a lot much rough than what she was giving those kids. You know what I mean? So this is an article I'll pull up on the dad, and we'll read that real quick, because people were like, wondering. I was wondering, was there a father involved? Sometimes there's not. Sometimes there can be multiple fathers and all that good stuff. This is just stuff we know. Let me get down here to it. The father eventually took the issue to court, because like I said, he had been incarcerated, then he got out. Let's see. He didn't identify the man. The mother has also has not been publicly identifiable, what she has now. The sheriff said the children's father was incarcerated but was denied by the mother. Bouchard did not say when the man was released from incarceration. The father eventually took the issue to court in 2022, and consent agreements were reached that would have allowed the father to see the children. However, the mother still refused to let him see the kids. So if that happened, can't they get her in trouble for that if there was an agreement reached through with the court, even, in 2022? And here it is 2025, and you still hadn't seen them. Did you ever go back to court and say, hey, judge, she's not letting me see my kids? Good morning, Dolphin. Yes, she's definitely right, a monster. So that was a piece about the father. So he will probably try to get those kids. I don't know. I don't believe the grandfather and grandmother were together. Do you know what I mean? Because if the kids are with the grandfather, from what I've seen so far, they're not with the grandmother, who apparently was cool with not seeing them or asking much about them in 5 years. Let me pull up this. There you go. So that place didn't look like it was going to be too inexpensive to live in, right? And she was paying rent up until October. And like the sister-in-law said, don't say you couldn't afford your kids, because apparently you could afford all this. Let me show you. This thing was right here. She lived in Chicago, Illinois. These are just some of her photos that she displays proudly. Not one photo of a child, I mind you, all of her. Let's go ahead and take a look through these. It looked like to me, through some of the pictures I saw, she was working in some type of industry. I'll say it like that. Apparently, she was also hosting parties at clubs. I read some interactions on her Facebook where people are like, are you coming back? I'm about to board my plane. Okay, while your babies are over there starving to death and living in filth, she's over here living large on Facebook. Her Instagram isn't no better. Yeah, there she is, just posing for the camera and all her clothes and and notice in court, she didn't have all that pretty long hair anymore. You guys take them girls home at the end of the night, and that hair comes off, and them eyelashes fall off, and you realize them 10-inch nails are fake, and that ass padding in her underwear is like, whoa, like they totally different women by the end of the night, and they have to get undressed. Her hair did not look the same in court as it does in these pictures. You know, it's ridiculous that you're going to go on here and post all these photos of yourself and never any of your kid, and all these sexual natures, and all this scantily clothing, and things of that nature. And like I said, there was posts in here about her hosting events, and yeah, she was part of it. I think she was like doing videos for rappers. There's pictures in here of her, like this dude feeding her, like it looked like to me sushi or some shit. Like, I couldn't even believe it when I found it yesterday. And I don't mind showing them because I saw what the conditions your children were living in, and I think you're slap ass ridiculous. She was like 34 years old, I think. But yeah, she didn't look like she was feeling bad about leaving them kids like that, did she? Not at all. And there was even some posts as if like she went to college at some point. They're like that one there with the college, but there was other things she was weird that she posted about colleges, and I'm like, are you hanging out at college scenes and in the industry? What's actually going on here? See, you got all these yeah, look at her. That's what she'd rather be doing than going home and taking care of babies, dumbass. So yeah, like, I think we've all seen enough of her nastiness. Look at, it's just disgusting, and it's disturbing that she's out there living like that,
So she's 34. The oldest boy and the girls are 15, 14, 13.
Yeah,
So she started popping out kids when she was 19.
at least. Yeah. Yeah. And there was a fourth one, but it ended up with its dad, thankfully. And the other three, like, their dad was incarcerated, we just heard, but then when he got out, he still couldn't get her to let him see the kids. Where was this other thing I was going to show you? Oh, here it is. Now, I stumbled across this. Uh-oh, let me pull this down. Okay, let me pull the screen up. This is the cleaning crew that was in charge of having to go in there afterwards. But this should be sound. Not weird. Anyway, you can see it, but the girl's like, hey, I'm here and I'm in charge of cleaning all this up. She tells the guys that refrigerator and stove has got to go. And they had to wear hazmat suits to clean the place out to begin with. I watched them doing all that on a video, and then they have to suit up to come in here and start cleaning this house as well. It was just horrible condition. And the kids don't have running water, they don't have cleaning supplies. Who's going to teach them? They were younger than 13, 14, 15 when they were left. They said that when these kids got to the hospital, they weren't even sure how to use the bathroom right anymore, like the toilet, or even brush their teeth correctly because they hadn't done it in so many years.
Damn it,
Yeah.
Bright Wheel. That's it. No, it's the Joe effect.
What
There's no sound. Bright Wheel says there's no sound. So
Yeah, I don't know why, because usually my options right there. When I played it from Facebook, I could hear the whole thing, but I don't even see the option to turn my volume on. I don't know why it's not playing volume. So yeah, we were just looking at the inside of it at that point, and I was talking because I can't. Yeah, it's like not even giving me an option to turn volume up or anything. But I was just showing you guys what the inside looked like, once they went into with the cleaning crew. Because now, the owner's going to need it cleaned, painted, new flooring, all kind of shit. This guy's going to have to pay to have this whole unit redone now because it was such horrible conditions. So
you think she's not going to get her deposit back?
probably no. No, ma'am. Uh-oh. That was
If it was Section 8, she probably didn't have to put down a deposit, or
that
maybe
didn't
the
look like
government did.
yeah, that didn't look like Section 8 to me.
I don't think so either. Yeah,
I
it
don't think
didn't
she
me
was
either.
receiving any benefits, honestly. She probably didn't take the time to try to get food stamps or anything so she could make sure they had food.
I mean, on the outside, those were decent looking apartment and a decent looking apartment building on the outside.
Yeah, yeah. Like so, what I'm saying, they didn't look like they were inexpensive or part of the system housing, and just because I just don't think that was Section 8 or anything like HUD or anything like that. I really don't, because just going by her Facebook stuff, I don't think she would have been the mom in tune enough to keep up with renewing her benefits every 6 months or however they do it in Michigan or whatever the qualifications were. I don't think she cared. And so she was out there earning all her own money. Obviously, she was earning a lot of money doing something because of the way she was dressed, the way her wigs and all that. Nails, like the sister-in-law said, your nails were done, your hair was done, you had on all these clothes and all your photos you were putting all over Facebook. She was getting money from somewhere. And at some point, was the money tapering off because she just wasn't good at her job no more and you only can afford a loaf of bread now? Or was you just gotten so selfish and like, hell with them kids, they can just eat a loaf of bread this week, whether they got a drink or not? It's insane. So I just wanted to bring you guys the update that she did have that arraignment. Like I said, $250 million cash bond. And if she's able to make that bond, which we know she's not, she can have no contact with her children because, like the judge said, they're with family members, and she could still listings at the property go for $1,200 a month, Dolphin says, or $93,000 to 136 according to Zillow. Yeah, I believe it. Thank you, Dolphin, for looking that up. I appreciate that. I believe it. So if you can afford $1,200 a month, but you're living 6 minutes down the street, up until October, she was paying that rent all these years. So that was a lot of income coming in, right? If she could pay that much for to stash the kids in, so I don't got to be bothered with them.
Well, is she paying for 2 apartments, or is she like living with a sugar daddy down the road type of thing?
They just showed a woman that she roommated with 6 minutes down the road.
And that woman, was she paying, partial rent there? Was she paying half rent, third rent?
That was probably, I don't know, she was probably just chilling with her friend or renting a room. I don't know. It's just that they said 6 minutes down the road, because they had found a document with a second address listed for her. When they looked it up, it was 6 minutes down the street from where the kids were. And they went and talked to the homeowner or the person living there, and it was a woman. And the woman confirmed that, yes, she did live there. But she would always tell them the kids were with their dad when they asked. So no telling who else she shacked up with in the past 5 years and where she was all living. I've seen a lot of hotel rooms. Let me put it that way. On Facebook, she was in a lot of hotel rooms. This woman was traveling around doing her thing. So she was all over the place. Yeah. They were, just from the way they were dressed, just from the events I saw her hosting. It was pretty obvious to me what she was out there doing. You don't dress that way for the business world, right? She didn't have her an office job somewhere and just couldn't be a mom and couldn't deal with it. She was a party girl. She was that girl. Call girls, whatever you want to call them. Yeah, they just said that one of the neighbors was 2 doors down. These kids so people would see the mother occasionally. They never saw the kids come outside, but she would tell them they couldn't go outside. And like we just heard from one neighbor 2 doors down, the kids would call out the window and say hi to him, something like nice car, and he would wave back at them. But he had no way of seeing into that apartment and seeing. They were terrified of their mother. If I yell out for help to that man that we're trapped in here and mama won't bring us food, she's going to whip my ass when she gets home, that kind of thing, But if I noticed there were kids at the window, and then I noticed they never came outside, and I would have red flags, but that's just me. Not everybody's super in tune to certain things. And sometimes you might think you see something, but you wonder, is it really what I think? You know, I don't know how to explain why people didn't. What I can explain is family members going 5 damn years and not seeing kids. Let my sister try to pull that shit on me for 5 years. Where's the kids? They're with their dad. Where's the kids? They're with a babysitter. You know, you fixing to take me to these kids, girl. Or we fixing to fight just like we've always done. And we'll be loving each other tomorrow. But right now, I need to see your children. Put my eyes on them. You know? I don't know. So I don't really blame the neighbors. And the school situation, that's what I was going to touch on earlier. She had filed to transfer the kids to a different school. And like that happened, but nobody ever confirmed that it did happen. And they fell through the cracks. So in the press conference, one of the press conferences, they were talking about trying to change that so that there's like has to be a follow-up that yes, these kids are here and enrolled now and we have eyes on them kind of thing. Because before there was like a gap where they could fall through the cracks, and that's exactly what happened with these kids. Because we all wondered, what about the schools? Nobody ever knew these kids weren't showing up at school and all that stuff. And during the time when it started, it was back during the COVID still. Were they doing online school in Michigan like they were in Florida? You know, I don't know what all went down there, but that's what I did take away from the press conference, that there was a gap in the system, which caused that, you know, that to happen. So hopefully she'll have her, you know, she'll get her full extent of the law punishment when she goes back to court. We'll follow up on that arraignment. I don't know, but how do you walk in there and plead not guilty to that, right? Not guilty.
That's a default plea. Like the judge will enter in a plea of not guilty, like just by default.
I understand that, but in Florida we have no contest. I might have did, but I might have didn't.
Yeah. Well, on initial arraignment, first appearance, neither side is going to agree to a plea of no contest. And you're going to want to plead not guilty, even if you know you're 100% guilty. Your very first hearings, it's all going to be not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, and then maybe we'll come to a plea agreement later, and maybe they will in this case.
Well, a lot of times you'll start out with a not guilty on first appearance, but by the time arraignment comes, that could change. She's already got a court-appointed attorney, so they're already talking to her ahead of that March arraignment. She could walk in there right then on arraignment and plead guilty and start working a plea deal right then and there. That's how it's done in Florida. So, you know, it's kind of like standing silent over there in Idaho. It's a thing. It's a legal thing. I can name y'all 3 people who've done it so far. Koberger, Lori Vallow, and Skylar Mead, Ann's other client, with her standing right beside him. We stand silent. And if y'all don't know what he did, he's absolutely guilty of what he did. And he's going down for the death penalty. But yeah, there he is, standing silent. When they have it all on video, the shootout and all of it. Okay, dude, stand silent. We got you. Just like Lori and Koberger. Because everybody made a big deal about that. Oh, he stood silent. That means something. Not in Idaho, it doesn't. It's like pleading no contest, right? We do in Florida. All right, so let me get the video to the timestamp. The whole thing isn't worth watching. Okay, it's not. And this isn't too long, but it's CC Moore on a show. And it's, like I said, it's older, but it pertains to Idaho. Okay. Let me pull the screen up. Oh, what happened? No, that's not what I meant to do. I meant to share screen. And I just wanted to present to the people who don't, like you said, you're not familiar with her, so I'm glad I'm doing this. So the people who aren't, and it's just for informational purposes, everyone. It's not to try to change your mind on anything or how you feel about IgG or DNA. It's just her explaining her process and what the law process should be on it. So.
C. Moore, head of genetic genealogy services for Parabon Nanolabs law enforcement unit, which has made more than 200 successful identifications of violent criminals. She's not worked the Idaho case. She stars in the documentary series The Genetic Detective on all 10 seasons of the PBS television documentary series Finding Your Roots with Henry Louis Gates Jr. Cece, thank you for being here. What does this mean? Single source
of male DNA, which I'm reading from the affidavit?
It means there were no other DNA detected on that, meaning sometimes you can have a mixture. You can have multiple people's DNA. You want to have single source DNA if at all possible, because that really just ties that one person to that item. Now, it was likely that this was touch DNA. Certainly it's possible there was blood. They didn't tell us what type of DNA, but most likely it was touch DNA. And that would typically be just a few skin cells. This might have been a very small amount of DNA, but because of today's technological advances, we can detect even the tiniest bit of DNA.
How reliable is touch DNA?
They can detect the tiniest amounts of DNA. Everybody's like, there's not going to be enough on there to test and prove anything, but we'll let her continue.
If it is skin cells in comparison to, say, blood?
It's a great question. It is more transferable. So, of course, you would like to have blood. You would like to have semen or saliva, and they might. You know, they haven't shown all their cards. We don't know all that they have. But touch DNA, now that we can use it because of the sensitivity of our equipment, it also means you have to be more cautious about using DNA as your only evidence. So it's a really positive thing that they clearly have other evidence. This is just one piece of it. We have seen touch DNA transfer in other cases. Of course, it's fairly rare, but it is something that you have to be aware of and make sure that there are other aspects of the case also pointing at the same person.
Cece, good news, I guess. It's hard to commit murder without leaving something behind.
That's right. Yeah, I've been saying this for weeks. That type of violent, intimate crime, it is virtually impossible not to leave something behind, even if you are a criminology PhD student. So I am not at all surprised they were able to find something. Even if he tried hard not to leave something, you still would. And that is great news, because what it means is that anyone who perpetrates this type of crime in the future should be aware that they will be identified. They will be caught. There really is no reason that we should see serial killers, serial rapists moving forward. This guy, potentially could have become a Ted Bundy or even a Zodiac, not identified 50 years later. But because of the DNA technology, the advances that we're seeing, both in investigative genetic genealogy and the ability to use tiny amounts of DNA, we can identify someone, whether they are in the law enforcement database or not.
Cece, the cases that you have cracked, for which you have become famous, are the cases that necessitate you putting together, in connection with a private lab, a very complicated family history, family tree, and tracing back cousins and generations. That doesn't seem to be what took place here.
Well, I don't think we can reach that conclusion yet. Investigative genetic genealogy is simply a tip. It's a lead generator. It should never be used as evidence against a suspect. And so it is proper that it would have been left out of the affidavit, in my opinion, because it should not form the basis of an arrest warrant. And so even though they didn't put it in there, I don't think we can rule it out. We don't know whether it was what initially identified him as a person of interest, and then they looked more closely at that tip about the car, or it could have gone the other way, where they identified him through that tip about the car, and at the same time they were working on the genetic genealogy and may have built his family tree to see if it was consistent with what they were seeing. I have done that in some cases. If there are persons of interest, you can very quickly rule them out or potentially not be able to exclude one or more of those matches, maybe a second, third, fourth cousin, and said, look, this is somebody who is a strong person of interest. So I think there's still a lot for us to learn on what happened here. I do think it is highly likely that an advanced private outside lab was used, at least somehow in this case. You know, we've all been hearing whispers of this. There's been lots of leaks that investigative genetic genealogy was used. So I do think that they were at least trying to, or in the process of doing so.
And you make a great point. They of course don't have to put in this affidavit of probable cause. They, the prosecutors, all that they have. CeCe Moore, that was tremendous. I thank you as always.
North Idaho, where 4 University of Idaho students were found.
How did it stay so long on the brass? That's interesting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it's something that people have looked at extensively. The question's been out there a long time. Somebody brought that out a long time ago. And then Truth says the brass and metal studies was parroting can't apply to the Idaho 4. Okay, so a lot of factors go into it, and it can last longer than you guys think it does. And this DNA was inside of that snap. You know, it wasn't laying on the outside of it. And we do now know there was blood on the sheath, which we all suspected there would be since it was under a bloody body. Twitter became all abuzz with that yesterday. Oh, there was blood on it. Well, no shit. We knew that without knowing it. It's common sense kind of would tell you that. Snaps are clear coated and dipped. I've got the exact model numbers they were looking for in these search warrants, and I looked at these knives extensively. DNA on brass generally lasts a relatively short period, with studies showing that it can degrade significantly within hours or days due to the metal's corrosive properties, particularly from the zinc component in the alloy, meaning recovering a complete DNA profile from brass surfaces often mutation, but it states within hours up to days. So yeah, they got DNA off the sheath. Yet at this point, people who don't believe they did have to believe they planted it. You know, apparently you just heard CC say they don't even need a lot, because everybody was saying, oh, it had to be like a skin cell. It had to be so minor they couldn't tell anything. But with the technology they have now, you don't have to have a lot. And that's just looking at it fairly and evaluating it fairly, you know, and taking in information from people who actually know what they're talking about with it versus, you know, and like I said, everybody's looked up that brass a long time ago. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean for that to happen. So yeah, that's, you know, I guess that'll be settled in court. If Anne wants to dispute the DNA on that, she can absolutely say, well, it was how degraded was this sample, you know, because of this brass button. But you know, like the judge said, Koberger claims it wasn't even his sheath. He wasn't there. So okay, let me get to my playlist here. Back. There was another one I was going to show you guys with CC, and it's interesting because she talks about how she, you know, like she did Koberger's tree on her own. She didn't have any. She did not work on the case. There's no gag order on CC Moore. She did not work on the case, but for her own curiosity, doing what she does for a living, she worked up a family tree on Brian Koberger, and she says some interesting things about it. Let me get us to the right timestamp again because I don't want to hear the BS. 23. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. It was this one. Okay. She's going to do a lot more explaining here and talk about what she did with that family tree. Now, like I said, this is the Presumptive podcast. Don't strike me, Sarah. We're just using you for educational purposes. You attorney. You. All right. Here we go.
genetic genealogy, also known as IgG, which sounds like something out of fertility clinic, but it's actually DNA related. Cece, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'll just note that it's also called forensic genetic genealogy and forensic investigative genetic genealogy, but I do prefer the investigative GG.
Yeah, IgG.
You do the forensic investigative, then you got FIG, though. I feel like that might be a little easier for people to remember.
That is what it seems to be morphing toward, but just so the audience understands, those are all the same thing, same technique. We just haven't settled on the term yet.
So for those of you who don't know Cece, as I said, she's a leading authority on IgG through collaboration with hundreds of investigative agencies across all 50 states, as well as other countries. She has led the Parabon genetic genealogy team to the unparalleled record of over 300 successful identifications of violent criminal suspects and unidentified decedents since 2018. That's like one per week, Cece, right? Average?
And we've stayed pretty consistent with that from the very beginning.
And Cece's work with law enforcement has led to cases where the suspect was identified through IgG and has led to 70 convictions of violent criminals so far. Now, what stood out to me about that part of your background, Cece, is that, or your record, I should say, is that typically IgG is used or has been used in cold cases. And I thought 70 convictions out of cold cases is a lot, right?
Yes, but they're not all cold cases. So
Okay.
a lot of people believe that the Koberger case
Right.
is the first time it was used in an active investigation. But
Right.
I actually worked with Detective Josh Wilson out of St. George, Utah on a rape and assault of an elderly woman in their community way back in the summer of 2018. And that rapist actually pled guilty. And he was the first person who was identified through investigative genetic genealogy in an active investigation.
And Cece's also been on PBS and ABC, where she's had a show. Earlier this year, you probably saw her a lot on news shows just following Brian Koberger's arrest in Pennsylvania. Just a few questions before I turn it over to Jim. Jim is extremely skeptical. I'm very curious, and Matt is hesitant. Okay, just so you're prepared. And we have a lot to learn collectively from you. So
I've dealt with a lot of objections and privacy questions and things like that over the decade plus that I've been doing.
Well, yeah, and I'll be honest, obviously this is important. I mean, I don't think Jim has either. We've not had a genetic genealogy type of case where it's been the identification tool in our cases. So of course I want to use this to prepare myself for possible cross-examination in the future. But it's obviously something that is now more, like you said, prevalent in these active investigations, and important to know how it works, because when you talk to some traditional DNA experts, they say it's junk science, they say it's unreliable, it's like Ancestry and Me, and obviously there's more to it that you're going to educate us on. What is the difference between what you do in the genetic genealogy field and a traditional DNA, or traditional DNA science, I should say?
So traditionally, law enforcement has used a STR profile. That's a short tandem repeat, and there's 20 genetic markers typically in those profiles. That is what's court admissible. That is what you use in the law enforcement databases when you're looking for that exact match, or if you're doing a familial search in the law enforcement databases where you're looking for a first-degree relative, parent, child, or a full sibling. Mm-hmm. Genetic genealogy is performed on voluntarily provided profiles. And that's what's very different, because with STR testing and the law enforcement databases, those are compelled DNA profiles. And so there's certain laws that would apply to that. In genetic genealogy, we're using a different type of genetic marker. It's called a SNP, SNP, single nucleotide polymorphism. And we look at almost 1 million of those across the genome in order to create the file that is then uploaded to the two databases that have agreed to work with law enforcement. And those are GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA. So everyone in those databases has been notified and been given the opportunity to opt in or opt out of their DNA being used for this purpose. And those are the two smallest databases in the field. So there's over 40 million people who have taken direct-to-consumer DNA tests. And there's a big misconception that law enforcement can compare against all of those. But Ancestry DNA, 23andMe...
So it's only if they opt in?
Yes, but...
why would they opt in? Why would anybody opt in?
Well, let me quickly make the point that we can't use Ancestry DNA, 23andMe, or MyHeritage because they have terms of service that bar law enforcement's use. So it's really important for people to understand that. Now, why would people opt in? Because they think it is a good thing that violent criminals are being identified and that unidentified human remains are also being identified, and resolution and answers are being given to these families. And so these are people that have clearly thought this through, and it's something they want to actively support.
Well, say, Cece, on opting in, I mean,
I may have read something incorrectly, but what I read is that family tree DNA, they opt you in automatically. And so
That's right. I was careful with my wording. I said you're given the opportunity to opt in or out, which is true, but the two databases handle it differently. At GEDmatch, you have to actively opt in. You have to check a box that says
this is like the
at
key
Family
legal
DNA, all US
argument to me
residents
right
are
here.
automatically opted in, and they
Like terms of service are not legally binding on the courts.
No.
Like just because you violated a private terms of service agreement between two private entities, the corporation and the person submitting their DNA, does not make that legally prohibited from using as evidence in my mind. I'm not a legal expert and I'm not a judge, so maybe a judge is going to have to weigh in on that, but it's terms of service. That's an agreement between two private parties. That's not a legally binding matter. Anyway, I've said that like 5 million times. I'll probably say it another 5 million before we're done with this
Well, I
case.
mean, you're still not going to have people who believe you, but she lays it out. You know what I mean? It is what it is. If the FBI violated terms, they got to take it up with those companies, and the Supreme Court can decide what FBI is allowed to do later on.
they have the opportunity to opt themselves out. So it's a different
Right.
system.
That's consistent with what I've read. Is the genealogy based DNA, is it all mitochondrial DNA as opposed to?
It's autosomal DNA, which is the type of DNA you inherit from all of your ancestral lines. We can also see any shared X chromosome DNA, which can be useful if we're trying to identify a male, since that X DNA only comes through his mom's side. So it's almost exclusively autosomal DNA. There are times where we might look at the mitochondrial DNA or the Y DNA to see if it's consistent between two people, but the vast majority of our work is done with the autosomal DNA analysis.
And one of the other things I've read is that the genealogy DNA lab director at the FBI, for example, advocates not disclosing the use of this science in court, that they relied upon it to identify a suspect, perhaps like in the Koberger case, but they're taking great pains to hide the fact that they relied upon this technology. Why is that?
So to my knowledge, that is a mischaracterization of the policy. They don't want it being brought into court because it's not evidence against somebody. It doesn't prove anyone committed a crime. It's just considered a tip or a lead generator. And so they don't use it in their warrants. So to my understanding, the FBI has been recommending that it's not used in a warrant. It's never used as the basis for an arrest, to charge anyone, or to compel DNA collection. So I've never heard what you're saying, that they say not to reveal it at all. They just want to keep it out of court.
Well, explain how it can be used as a tip. I don't understand
Well,
that.
it's the same as if I called a name into Crime Stoppers and they need to do the full investigation. They need to determine whether that is a true person of interest. And if they believe it is, they need to collect DNA, which typically they do surreptitiously, because they have to get that one-to-one match to their court admissible STR DNA profile. They cannot.
And I think we'll talk about that in the context of Koberger, but you provided us with a chart that essentially you use to explain how genetic genealogy testing or investigation works. And Matt, if we could put up that chart for CC to walk us through the science, essentially. So you get a sample DNA, for example, on the snap button of the knife sheath that was between two of the victims in the home on Kings Road in the Koberger case. You get that sample, and then what happens next in this process?
So it needs to go to a third-party lab, because there are no crime labs that currently have the capability to create the SNP profile that we need for genetic.
So right now, like state labs and FBIs don't do what Othram was doing. That's why it went to Othram. And that's what she just said. Did y'all catch what she was saying?
Yeah. So then what happened when they took Othram off the case and they did give it to the FBI?
Here's my theory. Othram's not allowed to access certain databases that the FBI can get away with. They're the ones that came up with the 4 low match brothers through preliminary tree building, right? I'll call it that. So then how far could they go at that point? So then they all had that little, meeting with the investigators and the FBI, and the FBI says, give it to us. And they did. They didn't stop their work because they weren't any good at it or didn't get nowhere. You know what I mean? They got somewhere. They developed 4 low profile brothers, relatives. So they were building a tree, obviously. But they're only allowed to search certain databases, and they're not going to break terms of service because they're off them. And FBI has a different, FBI is FBI. That's my theory. FBI took it, and within no time, they had Koberger's name.
Genealogy. So there's a number of labs in this country that are doing this work now. So that DNA would be sent to them. They would create that SNP profile. So typically they're looking at anywhere from about 700,000 to about 1 million SNPs. There's three different processes they can use now. There's microarray, which is a SNP chip, which just looks at those. They can do whole genome sequencing, which looks at the entire genome and then extracts out those SNPs. Or they can do a newer technology called Kintelligence, which looks at far fewer SNPs. And then once that analysis is done, the scientists work with that file, with that data, to try to make that data more optimal, because typically we're working with degraded DNA, mixed DNA, contaminated DNA. So we need the bioinformatics scientists to work with it on many of these samples. Then once that is done, they upload it to GEDmatch and or Family Tree DNA, and it's compared against all of the people in those databases that are opted into law enforcement matching or not opted out if it's Family Tree DNA. Then we receive a list of people who share DNA with that unknown person we're trying to identify. We call them the subject. It's not always going to be the person that committed the crime. We've had a number of cases where it ends up being contamination from a law enforcement officer, or it's someone who was at that crime scene for an entirely different reason. And so it's really just our job to try to narrow down the DNA contributor's identity. Sometimes we can narrow it down to one probable contributor based on their family tree and who is related to all of these top matches that we get on that match list. And sometimes it's a set of siblings or cousins. Sometimes we don't have enough data to narrow it down, and we have to do much more work at that point.
Cece, how does this flowchart work that we put up here? Can you kind of explain what we're looking at?
So this was my most straightforward case to date. It was the very first one I worked with law enforcement. It was Jay Cook and Tanya Van Kylenborg. You can see up there in the top corners. They were murdered in Snohomish County, Washington. They were Canadian residents who were...
I was surprised to hear her talk about this case because I know this case. And this poor guy and girl, they were Canadians. They just came over to the U.S. for, anyway. I was like, whoa, that's that case? And anyway, it surprised me.
Yeah, I hope if they ever investigate me, they don't use my high school yearbook picture. Just saying.
Good Lord.
Errand. And Tanya was raped, and there was a DNA sample on her pants. And so that was sent for this SNP analysis. A profile was created, uploaded to GEDmatch. We got really lucky in this case, and this is not typically what happens, but this is the most straightforward way to explain it. We had 2 matches at the top of that list who shared about 3% of their DNA with the unknown suspect. That means they are approximately second cousins. So I don't have to build the family tree too far back, just a few generations to find those common ancestors. Once I've identified those likely common ancestors with that person of interest, then I'm going to do reverse genealogy or descendancy research, where I build forward from those common ancestors, which you can see noted as great-grandfather, great-grandmother, and grandmother on this chart. And then I look for a triangulation or a union couple between those 2 family trees. Match 1 and match 2 are not related to each other. So our person of interest has to be related to both of those people. In this case, I found that a person from match number 1's family tree married a person from match number 2's family tree. And you can see them there as mother and father. They had 4 children, but 3 were female. And so there was only 1 male in that family who could be our DNA contributor. He is a cousin to match number 1. He's a cousin to match.
1 male in the Koberger family. And we already know there was 4 low matches that were probably cousins.
Number 2. And we all have unique family trees except for our full siblings. So that meant that he was my theorized DNA contributor, but I can't tell them it's him because I don't have his DNA. So I'm just presenting a theory or a hypothesis and saying, this is who I believe it most likely is based on the genetic genealogy analysis. Now, typically I would use a dozen matches or 24 matches, and they would be much more distant than this. We'd be building back to the early 1800s or 1700s. So this is a case that only took me 2 hours to find this individual because we got lucky. And so I gave you this chart because it's the easiest to explain, but usually we're going to be dealing with a lot more data, a lot more
So
treatment.
applying what you just explained to Koberger, because everyone's asking, I mean, listen, the DNA in that case bothers me, all of it. But everyone's asking this question, which is the identification of Koberger, in other words, the genetic genealogy testing was the linchpin in that case. And then they found familial DNA from the trash they retrieved from his parents' home. And that's where they felt they hit the jackpot, and they were able to get the arrest warrant for him. And then, of course, once he was arrested, there was direct DNA from him collected. So my question to you is, what is the accuracy or margin of error in the science? Because I mean, this is a big issue in this case.
It's really different than when you're doing a one-to-one comparison where you get those numbers like there's a 1 in 30 trillion chance that it's anyone other than this individual. We are not using that type of approach. We're just saying this is the theory of who this DNA contributor is. So there really isn't, it's not applicable or relevant. I don't know hypothesis based on who he's sharing DNA with in the database and what their family trees look like. And
well,
so,
Jim, in the probable cause affidavit that the public defender, the law enforcement filed for Koberger's arrest, they specifically said, do not rely on the genetic genealogy testing information in the affidavit. Essentially, the probable cause was supported by other facts.
Right.
So
I understand there, Sarah, that they, I guess they triangulated to the Koberger family through this genealogy DNA research, and then they did a garbage search. They got DNA from garbage, and that it as close to a STR match as they could get to the father, and they matched that to the snap on the knife.
That sounds like a closing argument.
Yeah, I mean, so
garbage
I think
DNA. It's garbage DNA.
I think that's what they did. Now, one thing, CC, that concerns me is, this is sort of in the background, and I know you say it's just for leads, but we know, doing the work that Sarah and I have done over the years, that if the law enforcement become focused too razor-like on one person, they're going to go out and build a case against that person.
Yeah.
They're going to
So I've been
evidence and start.
I've been trying to hear this guy out, and that's the first thing that he's said that I've agreed with, that if law enforcement has a suspect in mind, they may try and build the evidence around getting that person convicted. And we've seen that in other cases, but this is the first time I've actually agreed with him on one of his points that, that can happen, and that does happen for sure.
And she's about to go into that, but old Jim there, he's something else. Let me tell you, I watched him through the whole Murdaugh trial as he defended that guy. I see you, Jim. Anyway, let's let CC explain her side of it.
All
now,
right.
remember, she doesn't work for the FBI. She works, she's just telling you what it should be. And you're right, Firefly. That's exactly, you nailed it. And people, can scream it all day long, right? But okay, here we go.
they can't do it without the exact DNA match, that STR profile match that's 1-to-1. So even if I were to point them toward the wrong person, say, I think it's this guy, they have to go out and try to get that DNA to compare to their court admissible evidence before they move forward with any case. So if I'm wrong, they just won't get that STR match.
Well, I mean, I hear you, but they make criminal cases all day long without DNA evidence. I mean, they could.
Sure, they have. Oh, by the way, this is what cracked the Golden State Killer case, isn't it?
It is.
Right.
But if they had not gotten that 1-to-1 STR match, they wouldn't have arrested him.
Right.
And so that, yes, there has, of course, been cases where they have arrested someone whose DNA didn't match the DNA at the crime scene. And I've actually helped to exonerate someone with a case like that, which is, amazing. And one of the great things genetic genealogy can help do. But in this case, if we said, okay, we think he's your DNA contributor, I don't see why they would arrest him if they don't get the DNA match, because our work is all about the DNA. It's completely unbiased. I don't know anything else about him, or even typically when I work in a case, I don't even know much about the case. My job is only to tell them who I think the DNA contributor is, but it's always a hypothesis until they vet that.
How much of your work is with law enforcement and how much of it is with the defense?
98% is, or maybe even 99 is with law enforcement. But the Innocence Project, Barry Scheck is very, very interested in genetic genealogy. So I've worked with him. There's certainly cases where we are trying to identify the true DNA contributor in order to help them exonerate someone. And
Barry's going to be a guest on the podcast. He's he's
great.
an old friend and colleague, and I know he's obviously a great authority.
Well, ask him about it because he has really strong opinions how it needs to be used. He wants there to be a warrant anytime it's used. He's very, very strict about its use, but he also sees the great promise in it.
I do have a question though about the Koberger case. Can you at all hypothesize what the triangulation was in that case? I know it's all hush hush and we don't know much, but can you say, was it like a fourth cousin, a second cousin? How?
Okay, I think she's about to talk about a little bit of what she did on her own there. What are you guys talking about over there in chat?
We got a good discussion going on.
Oh yeah, I can see most of it.
Lots of smart people in chat. Lots of very smart people.
It's a movable object, but it doesn't prove he was there, and it don't prove he wasn't, does it? And I understand transfer DNA, but here's what I'm always going to say going back to that. In the Anderson case, they were absolutely unequivocally able to prove how that transfer DNA happened, right? So, because everybody wants to refer me to it as if I don't know about it, but I do. And so if Brian says he wasn't there, he was out riding around stargazing. He's not even placing himself in that home, but yet his DNA is there. And Anne pretty much didn't dispute that because she's claimed it needed a warrant to be searched. I was like, as if he had a right to have a warrant for that DNA on that sheath to be searched. How do you have a right? Because it's not yours. Remember, sir, you were riding around. So now if you tell me I went to a knife show, now I'm going to need to know the date and time of that knife show. If you sold your knife, can I have some dates and times on that as well? We have to be able to explain it logically at some point. You know, we can't just walk into court and say, that's just touch and transfer, therefore it's inadmissible. That's not how it works.
Distant the relationship may have been in that case?
Well, I, of course, wasn't involved in it, or I wouldn't be able to speak about it. So I don't have any inside information, but I have built his tree early on just to see how difficult it might be. Anyone who has recent immigrant ancestry in their tree is typically much more difficult to identify.
Hold on, I want to slow her down so everybody hears what she's got to say. Just because. What's normal? Oh, I'm like, what's normal?
Don't do 0.25. Don't do 0.25.
Identify. And he is at least for this are very, very small. And so typically you're using, but more typically third, fourth, fifth, and beyond. And so I don't know, the FBI did the genetic genealogy in this case. I would suspect they worked with more than one match, that there were multiple matches, that they built back and found a common ancestor, and then built forward and tried to narrow it down. I doubt they had a lot of great matches based on his family tree. So
now, y'all hearing what she's saying? Like, it wasn't like it was going to be super easy just to get to him and say, oh my God, that's the guy. Like, it took some work with his probably, like it did with her. But the FBI was still able to access more databases than anybody else. So even her.
Yeah. In most states, you can marry your second cousin or your third cousin in most states.
Yeah. I live across the state line from where people make jokes about it all the time. Ain't none of that happening over here. One time, look, we have a super large family and a lot of first cousins, second cousins, and so on. My daughter, my sister's daughter's at school. She comes home and she's like, oh, Mom, there's this cute boy at school. And I guess my sister saw him like at the school the next day or so. And she's like, honey, he's your cousin. She's like, what? Our cousin's son. So they were, distant cousins. But yeah, she's like, oh my God, I got to start asking every time I think a boy is cute. Is this my cousin? Because we are a very, very large family. Whoops, did I get the right? I wanted to get dolphins first. If DNA had been found on the outside surface of a movable object, that might have given me pause. Since this DNA was found inside the rings of the snap, I'm not questioning as much, right? And Firefly points out another good fact. For what reason did he need to log into a recovery account via a VPN at 449, especially when your phone was just like, what, coming back online? You're just now getting into it. Why exactly? There's a lot of whys in this case. What were you doing, dude? That alone with DNA on the snap leaning in the one direction. Yeah. Good morning, Sejoy. Welcome in. Firefly. She's like, no, dude, get away from me, you sicko.
It's legal, though. Firefly, it's legal. It's second cousins. That's legal.
We're in Florida. We declare it's not legal here. That's our new law. We just made that up, me and Firefly. In Florida, it is not legal to catch your cousin. Y'all hear that? Don't come to Florida with that BS. We got laws. We make them up on our own. Maybe Brian went to buy some stuff. The guys was like, I don't have it. What guys? Weighed out yet? Hold on. Here, look at my new knife and sheath. Well, that you would have to say that. Oh, you mean like the real killer could have done that with Brian, or he went to that house to buy his stuff? Because, we've heard that the house was that. Yeah, who knows? Brian better come up with a reason as to why his transfer might be on that sheath, though, for Anne to make it viable in court. She's going to attack the process of getting that sample. We got that. I know we got that alternative suspect damn document. We'll go take a look at in a minute, but let's let CC finish up here.
So there's some luck involved. It's just who has opted in, who's uploaded to those databases and opted in, and then what is the population group of the individual you're trying to identify. So I can't say what I think it was, but I suspect it wasn't easy and that they really had to work pretty hard.
Cece, what databases do you rely upon
Yeah.
to do your genealogy research? Is it all that when people upload their DNA, or do you go to independent or the Mormon Church or some other database?
That's a great question as well, because
Joe, did you hear what he said?
Yep, I heard that. That's because the Mormons are obsessed with genealogy and ancestry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They're obsessed with it. Yes.
most people are under the misconception that we're really digging into the DNA. But really what matters to us is how much DNA someone shares with that unknown person. And from that, we can predict their likely relationship. From there, we're turning to public records. So we are digging in public records, the vast majority of the time in our work. We're using anything that's available. There are billions of digitized records out there, has many of them. There are smaller databases all over the internet, all over the world that we can use. So if I have to build a tree back into Norway, then I'm going to be using Norwegian genealogy records, which are online. If I am building a tree that's mostly based in California, then I'm very fortunate because California has a lot of public records that are available that some other states don't. So every state and jurisdiction has different laws that determine what DNA or what records, vital records, are available, and some have a lot more than others. We use newspaper archives. We use social media. We use people search databases like, say, White Pages Premium, been verified, those types of databases. And so we're really
So V, if a firearm was used at a crime scene but left, or unspent rounds, those are all movable objects, right? A tire iron that could have been used on somebody is a movable object. You know, a hammer used on someone, which happens, is a movable object. So, yeah.
using dozens of different resources, but they are.
Do I want to what?
Do you want to hear a fun fact about why the Mormons are so obsessed with genealogy and ancestry?
Why?
Because they believe... No. They believe that the second coming will not happen until every single person has had a baptism for the dead on the entire earth. So they do baptisms for the dead in the temple, which means that all of the people that went before us that never joined the church and were never baptized into the Mormon church have to have a proxy baptism for them performed in the temple. So in order to do that, you need to have a complete family ancestry and genealogy done, so you can do proxy baptisms for the dead for every single person who has walked on the face of the earth ever.
Okay.
That's why they're so obsessed with it. So they can get all that done, so then we can have the second coming, and then we can have zombies. I'm just kidding. The zombie thing is not a mainstream Mormon theology, but
No, but it's on some of the websites.
yeah. But the second coming is, and the second
Yeah.
coming won't happen until we can figure out everybody's genealogy all the way back to Noah.
Yeah. So, yeah, like Sejoy was saying that, understanding everyone deserves a fair trial, but BK has to answer some hard questions. You say he's not supposed to have to explain himself. So you're right, the state has to prove their case, but that DNA on that movable object's pretty strong. So if he's going to claim it was a transfer situation, he does have to explain himself there.
Right, and that was the same thing in Delphi. Like, we all thought the state has to prove their case, and we didn't think they did, but the jury did, and that's all that mattered. Yeah.
Lord.
They're all publicly available, and there's nothing that I can access that anyone else.
And I am aware they are trying to get things moving forward to get a new trial over there. Like I said, I just haven't put it together yet. We'll get to it.
I have a question. Just generally, the database of where this is all coming from, is it really just a matter, as you said earlier, just who's opted in? So it's just a bunch of like good Samaritans who've decided.
So B, let me ask you this, and I like the stuff you're putting in the chat, but let me ask you this: if it comes back in one of those search warrants that he purchased a K-bar knife, would that have a bearing on what you feel? Because I see, to prove gun ownership is easy with serial numbers. They have specific serial numbers listed in their search warrants. So something tells me they may know a little more about that knife and sheath than we think than we're aware of, because they got pretty specific on these serial numbers. And I looked them up on Amazon. And so I just was curious if they, feeling is there. I don't know. The jury was privy to things we were not allowed to see in Delphi too, though. It went both ways. We saw a lot they weren't privy to.
That they feel like they should upload their genetic info. Like Sarah mentioned earlier, my word is hesitant. I put on a little bit of a conspiratorial cap. It just seems odd to me that people are like, here, take my DNA. Like, what's the upside for people to be doing this?
Increasing public safety, getting violent criminals off the streets behind bars. And a lot of people are also very interested in Jane and John Doe's getting their names back. And for those, there's about 40,000 individuals in the US that have died without their identification. So there's a lot of support for identifying them as well. At GEDmatch, if you're in the database, you are compared against those. You can be listed as a match for those. But if you want to, but for law enforcement, for criminal cases, you have to check that box. And so everyone in GEDmatch can be compared.
Thank you, Dolphin. Did I missay it? Right? I didn't say it correctly, did I? Yeah, you're right. Those were Amazon item numbers, not serial numbers. Thanks for the clarification. We're not guilters, V. I promise we're not guilters. Have you watched my Delphi coverage?
I lean guilty with Brian Koberger, but I am completely open to the possibility that he may not be guilty. I'm completely open to it. Like, if everything goes through the entire court process and the legal system and they find him not guilty, I'm not going to be as surprised as I was in Delphi.
Yeah.
Compared against the Jane and John Doe cases. And only about a third of the database has opted into criminal comparisons. Now, as far as why people do it, I've been involved in some long-term studies about this, and you might.
Okay, that's pretty much what they're talking about now, is the gist of terms of service and all that stuff, which we all have. I'm not going to talk about all that no more. I'm done with that part of it. So that's another battle. Okay, let me see here. Where's my thing? Oops. All that keeps starting automatically. Now let me pull up I checked earlier before we went live, and those new documents hadn't dropped yet on the docket, like I said. But I'll check in a minute. But the case summary had some interesting new things in it. Everything has a lot number. Yes, it does, sir. Let me get down to the bottom really fast since there's so much. Get down here. Okay. Now, the last thing that came out, of course, was the transcript that we saw and read part of. And then I posted the link for you guys over on the YouTube channel, on what used to be called Community tab, whatever it's called now, where I posted the link directly to the document for those who wanted to read it. Because that was one we did not read in full here. It took me 2 days to read those other documents that were out. Okay, you guys can see it. So on the 21st, the state filed a motion in limine about alternative perpetrator evidence. Alternate perpetrator evidence. What do we think that it pertains to? You reading them now, the new documents? Let me refresh it. Because I was just there. Damn it. Dolphin, get up here. Oh, that's not the bottom of the Koberger case. Let me get down to it. Did they drop since I went live? Me and my birth and hips. Good Lord, truth. Okay, we've got some. Thank you, Dolphin. Thank you. All right, so like I was saying, on the 21st, that transcript dropped. This is the state's. Let me get this up. Yeah, these weren't here this morning before we went live, so they have now dropped. Okay, this is the state's motion in limine admissibility of demonstrative exhibits and memorandum in support. Okay. Now the state of Idaho, by through the Latah County prosecuting attorney, and respectfully moves this court for a pretrial order regarding the admissibility of demonstrative exhibits. Demonstrative exhibits. Isn't that interesting? What is a demonstrative exhibit? Specifically, the state will seek to introduce a okay, here we go with our scans, guys. Specifically, the state will seek to introduce a three-dimensional model of the 1122 King Road residence for demonstrative purposes to aid the witnesses in their testimony. The only witness inside that home was Mortensen and Bethany. The state further submits the following memorandum in support of its request, and this will be granted. There's no way it won't be. Standard of admissibility. Initially, then they boarded up the house, then the trial was postponed, all that good stuff. They go back in, unboard the windows, and they go back in and do more scans. So they've got a really good, and Dolphin and I deep dove these Sparrow scans once, and you'll be amazed at what they can produce. And they also use it in the Madeline Soto case when they were out doing the area where she was found. They did the same work there to preserve the crime scene without having to take jurors back out, because everybody's like, oh, the house is torn down, they'll never know anything now. Well, whatever. Anne didn't care about the house being torn down, so I didn't care about it either at that point. Once she stopped caring, I stopped caring. In this case, the state anticipates introducing a three-dimensional model of the 1122 King Road residence, and it cites the exhibit, at trial. This model will consist of 3 levels, which can be removed by level to show the interior layout of the resident. The interior layout will depict wall and door placements, no furniture, human depictions. The model will be placed on a rolling table for portability within the courtroom, i.e., can be placed out of the way when not in use. This model is being constructed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation based on depictions and documentations and measurements taken at the scene prior to demolition of 1122 King Road residence. The primary purpose of this model is to aid the jury in having a better understanding of the layout of the residence, which is unconventional, and to illustrate where certain events occurred within the residence. The model will aid certain witnesses, i.e., law enforcement, surviving roommates, individuals responding to the crime scene, the crime scene analysis. Would that include Hunter? In demonstrating the location of the victims, wow. Location of witnesses, Dylan. Location of items of evidence, the knife sheath and blood. Victim's blood, I should say, let me make that clear. Items related to the testimony and path of travel. The state anticipates laying the proper foundation to establish the model accurately reflects the layout of the 1122 King Road residence. The model passes the IRE 403 balancing test as the value in facilitating the jury in visually understanding where facts in issue occurred at the crime scene far outweighs any danger of unfair prejudice, distraction, confusion of issues, or waste of time. The model will merely aid witnesses. Testimony is not being introduced to establish certain fact in the issue before and is not hearsay under IRE 801, i.e., not being offered for truth of the matter asserted. Conclusion, the state requests that the court issue an order allowing the state to use three-dimensional model of the 1122 King Road residence, finding that the model is relevant in order to aid witnesses in their testimony, provided that the state lays adequate foundation for the demonstrative exhibit. I like that. There's a drawing of it on the last page. I skipped it, or I didn't go down. Oh, so I don't skip it. Thank you. Oh, look at there. I wish I could turn that around. How do I do that? Let's see. Is it, whoa, come up here. Get up here. So there's a table that they're going to use. And we had that damn fixed TV screen over there in Delphi, Joe, that people couldn't see. So this thing's going to be on wheels on a table and can be moved around and will adequately depict the home as it was. I like that a lot.
I would rather have a graphic model than a physical model, because, yeah, maybe this is more complicated than the Delphi site for sure. But like if you have a 3D model of it, digitally produced, you can get in there and you can go wherever you want, and we've seen those. People have done those actually, and those are very helpful. Those are very helpful. Yeah,
Dolphin and I have been in a couple of them. You can see a lot of things. You get. I don't know if they'll introduce that later, or if they're just going to use this to show. Like they said, they can remove parts of this and show. So I have faith in what they're doing right there. I was just checking on comments as well. Dylan remembers enough about the vacuum. Do y'all think that could have been do you think she mistook that for a crevice tool that attaches to a vacuum? Like, what the hell is this dude walking around her house with a vacuum tool in his hand? Because if you look at a crevice tool, most women know what those are. Men, if you may know as well, if you vacuum your home, it's that attachment where you get into the cracks and the crevices of the furniture and things like that down along the baseboards or whatever. Think about it. It's long and thinner, doesn't have a brush on the end of it like a vacuum or like a portable vacuum cleaner type thing. So I was just wondering, thinking about the vacuum thing, because my favorite thing would have been a portable MVac, but that's just me. I think that may have been how the car was cleaned. Conclusions with all I've heard today makes me lean guilty. They're pretty scary and super accurate. It's like you're standing in the room. Yeah, Dolphin, it was like you were standing in the room, right after it happened. That one we saw was pretty crazy. Remember the one we went in and looked at with the victim on the floor and everything, the blood? It was crazy. All right, guys, let me see what the next document was. It was at the end. Yeah, that's the end of that one. So they'll be able to move it around the courtroom and bring it closer to the witnesses and to the jury and things of that nature. This one is, I was wondering about this one. This is the state's motion in limine referring to the alibi. Now remember, what a motion in limine is to keep things out of court. So this was curious to me. They want, okay, everybody can see that. Yes, the barbershop murder, Dolphin. Yeah, yep. I'm telling you guys, if we hear something or learn about something, we go and we look at every possible. We try to find as much as we can on it. And that was before we were streaming. That we did all that stuff. So state's motion in limine, re the alibi, comes now the state, Latah County. Let's get to the gist of it here. Respectfully moves the court in limine for an ordering prohibiting defendant from presenting any evidence, whether by direct or cross-exam, in support of any claimed alibi other than from the defendant himself. That's interesting. He had 6 weeks, baby, to clean that car. 6 weeks. And an MVAC is portable for $280. If you don't know what that is, go look it up. And a criminology student would absolutely know what it was and probably could afford that $280. I'd have been cleaning my car top to bottom, just in case, especially knowing I left my sheath. Possibly left my sheath. let me get my banner up. Jesus, I'm over here taking a risk. Oh goodness. All right, there we go. Now I feel like I'm covered. I can get all salty if I need to or want to. So that's interesting wording. Whether right in support of any claimed alibi other than from the defendant himself. So does that mean expert witnesses' testimony? You're going to argue your car data or your phone data shows he was what he says he was doing? No, he needs to get up here and say what he was doing. Is that what that means? By way of background, the state refers to the court to the following. Yay. State's May 23rd, 2023 request for discovery disclosure of alibi demand. The state's July 22nd motion to compel notice of alibi demand or notice of defense alibi, or alternatively to bar certain evidence. The defendant's August 2nd objection to the state's motion to compel. Motive of the defense alibi, alternatively a bar certain evidence. The attached it should be pretrial the attached partial transcript of the August 18th, 2023 court hearing relating to the alibi, where then presiding Judge John Judge observed that the defendants proffered so-called alibi not really an alibi, and he will address the issue if alibi disclosure is subsequent scheduling for the beginning line 8. Well, we know he's not the judge anymore, so he'll have to be heard. Which in paragraph 7 at page 2 addresses the deadline for the defense to comply with the statutory obligations for alibi disclosure. This scheduling order was subsequently vacated when the defendant waived speedy trial on August 23rd of 2023. The state's December 21st, 2023 motion for scheduling order, in which the second full paragraph on page 3 refers to the issue of the alibi. On February 23rd of 2024, order settling deadlines and hearings, which in paragraph 1 sets an alibi compliance deadline of April 17th of 2024. The defendant's April 17th, 2024 notice of defendant's supplemental response to the state's alibi. The state's April 26th response to the notice. Oh my goodness. Former presiding judge, June 27th, schedule ordering, which is subsequent to April. They're just listing all their court cases. Let me get to the good stuff. The defendant proffered April 17th notice of defendant's alibi or defendant's supplemental response to the alibi demand does not comply with the requirements of Idaho Code 19519 and ICR 12.1, or with the specific directive to the court's February 23rd, 2024 order setting deadlines and hearings. Consequently, the defendant should be prohibited from presenting any evidence, whether by direct or cross, in support of any claimed alibi other than the defendant himself. So in other words, don't get nobody else up there and ask him about that alibi. Just get him up there. Is that what I'm taking away from this? Even were the defendant to attempt to comply at this point in time, the state is irrevocably prejudiced. It has now been over 2 years since the homicides occurred and since the defendant was charged, and it would be unrealistic at this date to expect the state to effectively investigate and respond to any new or additional alibi-related disclosures. This is precisely the situation that caused concern for Idaho Court of Appeals, and they cite a case there, well as the concerns of the United States Supreme Court, and they have a case cited, where the court noted the case with which an alibi can be fabricated, and the state's interest in protecting itself against an 11th hour defense is both obvious and legitimate. The adversary system of trial is hardly an end in itself if it is not yet a poker game in which players enjoy an absolute right as to always conceal their cards until played. We find ample room in that system, at least as far as due process is concerned, which designed to enhance the search for truth in the criminal trial by ensuring both the defendant and the state ample opportunity to investigate certain facts. Is he trying to introduce new stuff about his alibi, you guys? I wonder. For the reason, the court should issue an order prohibiting defendant from presenting any evidence, whether direct or cross, other in support of any claimed alibi other than from the defendant himself. Guys, thinking the defense got confused and thought the court was talking about a guy named Jeff. Oh my God. What did Firefly say, Dolphin? Let me go up there and look. What'd she say? Maybe it was a small duffel bag and not a vacuum. Absolutely. It very well could have been. Here, Dolphin. That's funny. Yeah. Because if y'all think he'll testify? Because then that opens himself up to cross-exam by the state, right? I wonder if he will.
Every single defense attorney in the world, including Ann, is going to recommend against it.
Of course. No.
Yes.
Well, there have been cases where they do get up there and testify. Alex Murdaugh didn't mind.
And where's he at now?
South Carolina. I mean, prison
Sarah
now.
Boone did. Sarah Boone did. Where's she at now?
Yeah. I agree with you, and I'm very well aware of that. I'm just curious, his arrogance involved.
Right.
I'm taking into account this is a particular case, particular suspect that I'm dealing with, one at a time. I'm just teasing.
And he sits there in that defendant's chair and he drills holes in the back of her head with his eyes.
Yes, exactly. He always has. He's into it, So I don't know. She's probably saying, nah, dude, don't get up there. Don't get up there. Let me handle it. Okay, so this next one's interesting. Let's see what it says. Y'all think he won't testify? I can see that he won't. I mean, you want to risk it, right? Yeah, it was a big mistake for Alec, but it was kind of comical because what he just got up there and made it worse for himself, didn't he? Yeah. I don't know. You think he's probably gonna sit back and let Ann do all the work, but he's fully involved in his defense.
Yeah, Dolphin. Sarah Boone thought she could talk her way out of it, and she should have taken that 15-year deal. She should have taken the plea deal.
Failed miserably, did you, Sarah? Freak. Okay. I gotta make this bigger. All right. State's motion in limine, alternative perpetrator evidence. Huge 19-day mistake for Jodi Eyre. I forgot she did too, didn't she? Mm-hmm. Casey Anthony didn't take the stand, and we saw what happened there. All right, now comes the state of Idaho and through the Latah County prosecuting attorney and respectfully moves the court in limine for an order prohibiting the defendant from offering alternative perpetrator evidence or argument with the first satisfying the court without, evidence or argument without first satisfying the court that any such evidence is relevant or admissible pursuant to IRE 401, 402, and 403. In support of this motion, the state refers the court to Counsel State versus Meister, where the Idaho Supreme Court addresses the standard for assessing the admissibility of alternative perpetrator evidence. 148 Idaho 236. In Meister, the Idaho Supreme Court held the Idaho Rules of Evidence adopted in 1985 implicitly overruled State versus Larson 91 Idaho 442. That was 1966 case. It was overruled in 85. Okay, they changed with the times. The proper analysis is under IRE 401, 402, 403, Idaho at 241. Citing State versus Self, the Idaho Supreme Court noted the trial court must first consider and determine whether the proffered evidence is relevant under the Idaho Code. The second step is to determine whether the probative value of the proffered evidence is substantially outweighed by the danger of unfair prejudice, confusion of the issue, or misleading the jury, or by considerations of undue delay, waste of time, or needless presentation. Larson Court was concerned with the defendant will attempt to admit evidence where the sole purpose is to interfere that an individual other than the accused committed the crime. The Saudi defense, some other dude did it. The Idaho Supreme Court stated, if the defendant proffers evidence which merely tends to mislead the jury that another person committed the crime, or the evidence is not relevant because it does not tend to make the defendant's involvement more probable or less probable, then it is within the trial court's discretion to find the evidence inadmissible. Mere inferences, and if relevant, will be subject to the limitation provisions. In this case, during the course of the investigation, literally thousands of tips regarding possible perpetrators was received by law enforcement. With the exception of information regarding the defendant, none of those tips were sustained. None of those tips were sustained. And I bet you they got a bunch from social media. The state submits that any attempt by the defendant to offer argument or argue an alternative perpetrator theory without evidence specifically connecting the persons other than the defendant to the homicides would do nothing more than mislead and confuse the jury, and would also result in undue delay, waste of time, and would be a needless presentation of cumulative evidence and unfairly prejudice the state. Under the Idaho Supreme Court ruling, that's all I said. Okay. So what do you guys think about that? What are y'all saying over in chat? That's interesting. I mean, so alternate suspects, would that be cigarette butt guy? Would that be the blood on the handrail? Would it be the four low match brothers? You can't even bring them into court. Or is it, the
bloody gloves outside?
I think she's more concerned about the one in the house, honestly, because those. Let's look. If you look at people have scrutinized heavily how the crime scene investigators treated that house, and how some didn't appear to wear booties, or they were messy when they were outside. They were dropping things, this and that. Could that have been a dropped glove from one of the first responders? And were they able? I don't know. I do not know. But the blood on the handrail within the crime scene would concern me a little more. Um, then again, why wasn't any of it tested? Was it old, degraded? What's going on here? But if they have reasons why they didn't test it, can they prove good reason? I don't know. I'm just wondering if that's what she's talking about. If when they're saying alternative perpetuator evidence, is that what they're referring to? The unknown DNA for sure. Yeah. And not like some of the theories we've heard floating around out there, right? Like it was, all these other people that have been doxxed on the YouTube. So my guess would be the untested are, the blood on the handrail, the glove outside, possibly, that stuff.
Yeah. Donnie says, I watched people shake a magic 8-ball and flip tarot cards and then call the tip line. Wasn't there also a psychic that called out somebody that was a professor at WSU as maybe, or
that was
or
a TikToker. They got sued.
Yeah, and lost, right?
Definitely lost. Tried to say that that professor was responsible for this. I got people on y'all need to be careful what y'all say on the YouTube, because one day they might come knocking at your door and be like, what the hell are you doing? What are you doing? It's like putting people out there that don't need to be out there. I'm careful about that. Even in Delphi, I was careful about putting out some stuff on those alternative suspects, right? But we know that the alternative suspects came out of the state's own investigation. So in this case, is it the DNA stuff, right? The untested DNAs or the alternate DNAs that were found. The unknown, yes, the DNA was found between the first and the second stairs, first floor stairs there, not from Dylan's room on second floor going to the third floor. It was literally on the other set of stairs on the second floor. Yeah, what's happening here? Does somebody think I called somebody arrogant?
Oh, no. There's a discussion about whether Brian Koberger is arrogant or not, and why the public has a perception of him that way. And V said, well, he hasn't said anything, so how can you call him arrogant if he has remained silent and stood silent? And that's a good point, except my response was, I've seen the videos of the traffic stops, the one in Washington State and the two in Indiana, and that's the vibe I get from him, is that he's arrogant. It's a vibe.
I have seen him say things. I'm basing it on that kind of stuff I've learned about his past, stuff I've saw him say on his Tappa Talks, things that he said in these when he was pulled over. That's where I'm getting my theory at. He appeared to me to be an arrogant, and he's a Scorpio, so let me just throw that out there.
Lord, don't get us going down that path.
don't get me going on them damn Scorpios, hard-headed. My grandbaby's even one. I'm like, about that.
Oh, no.
I know, and he shows it 9 years old, and oh my God, does it show. Ugh. Yeah. Don't come at me, Scorpios. I'm my sister, my mama. I got too many of them around me. This Gemini can't handle them all at one time. Okay. Especially if I ever go to meet a guy, I'm like, which I'm not trying. If you're born in November and you're Scorpio, no way, because both of my exes happen to be Scorpios, born a day apart. A day apart. I'm like, what the hell? No. After those two back-to-back experiences, I'm done. They done me in for good.
That's like your first question at the bar is like, what's your sign?
That's mine. I don't go to the bars, but if I did, that would be my first question. I need to know your sign. I gotta know. If you tell me Scorpio, have a nice day, buddy. I already know how this is gonna end. So yeah, we look at this is one we just looked at, the alternative evidence stuff. Okay, let's see what else. What else you got here, Ann? Or State? Sorry. I'm so used to the defendant filing things. All right, it's going to be a bunch of talk about these documents and why the state wants all that kept out. It's going to prove Brian's innocent. Cigarette butt guy wasn't a direct match to the chief. I do know that. So, okay, so this one was interesting to me. That when I saw it in the case summary, I have not read it, but the title in the case summary, I was like, what? Yeah. Dolphin, that might be the only thing. That's not even worth it to me. Been there, done that. Not worth it. Feisty is feisty.
Yeah, no, that's a lot like dating Latino women.
Well, you're not a Gemini. Geminis and Scorpios as couples do not. For this Gemini, it's not going to work. It's just not happening. Because I've tried it twice and no siree. Okay, I didn't even know.
Feisty and spicy. We need some merch. We need some merch that says feisty and spicy.
Yeah.
And salty.
What was it? We were being called salt and pepper yesterday, wasn't we? In your morning live, or was that the night
think
before?
so.
I can't remember. It was salt and pepper.
Yeah.
Okay.
That describes my hair, by the way. Salt and pepper.
Uh-oh. I'm not even going to say what describes mine. It's in need of some attention. I need to get me some hair color. All right. I need to get it cut too, because this shit's getting long and it's getting on my nerves. Get off me, man. All right, let me pull this up. Okay, this is the state's motion in limine, RE neuropsychological and psychiatric evidence. What are they trying to keep out here? Let's see. Okay. Oh, is he going to try to offer this as some evidence? Let's see. Respectfully moves the court for an order in limine prohibiting defendant from offering testimony regarding neuropsychological evaluation and psychiatric evaluation of the defendant as summarized in the defendant's January 23rd, 2025 supplemental response to request for discovery regarding expert witnesses. They've got some expert witnesses come in and testify about his psyche, y'all. Specifically, the state objects to the proposed testimony of expert witnesses identified in Exhibits D7 and D13, appended to defendant's supplemental to response for discovery regarding expert witnesses. In support of this motion, the state respectfully refers to the Idaho court, or to the Court of Idaho Code 18, whatever, which provides the mental condition shall not be a defense to any charge of criminal conduct. Oh, shit. Hold on. That scared me. Hold on. It's my son. Damn it.
I wonder if that's a phone call from her Scorpio son. She said she's got one. Is that him? Is he calling in to protest? Salty. Oh, no. Oh, no. Salty, where'd you go? I can't hold down the crowd. They're like out of control. There's going to be a mob. There's going to be a riot. Alexa, play music in the public domain. Let's see what she's got today.
Domain by Peter Bernstein, Brad Meldau, and others on Amazon Music.
It's better than chamber music, right? It's kind of zippy, kind of funky. I dig it.
Guys, I got to take care of something. Real quick. I'll be right back.
We can all just hang out and groove to the music in the public domain. Did Koberger have Asperger's? Oh no, Jeff. Oh no. I hate it when that happens. I heard those Alexa commercials, and my Alexa will respond to those. She's like, "What? What? Did you say something to me?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't." She's like, "I think you did. I think you did." I don't see a plea deal happening in this. Donnie, Dolphin, I don't think I see a plea deal happening in this. This isn't just jazz. This is like funky jazz. Like it's good stuff. I'm good with it on a Tuesday morning. Oh, Dolphin. There's a murder defendant, a quadruple murder defendant that reminds you of your ex. How often does that happen? How often does that happen? Oh no, V, what up? He's not arrogant, he's autistic. So stop. No, that's what the psychologist is going to say. That may be a stretch, but I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I don't know if I go with that or not. But I am grooving to this music. This is good stuff. Yeah, right. Thai food. I'm just looking for Thai food. Thai food. We're just getting Thai food. Yep. Yeah, I remember that. That was an interesting double traffic stop. So we all wonder, like, was he being tailed? Why did he get pulled over twice in Indiana on the interstate? Like, was he being tailed? What do you guys think? Do you guys think he was being tailed and I like did that to like try and find something that they could use to arrest him, or was Indiana State Police just being d-bags and like, oh, you were following that car too closely, so I pulled you over? I mean, I can go either way with that. Like, Jeff, you're going to get me in trouble because now I want to say that, but I'm not going to because this is Salty's channel. It's not mine. So Firefly, if he was being tailed, what was the purpose of those two back-to-back traffic stops? Like within like less than an hour on the interstate in Indiana. Why would they say, okay, Indiana State Police or Hendricks County or Hancock? It was Hancock County, not Hendricks. Hendricks is west of Indy. Hancock is east of Indy. Hancock County Sheriff's Office pull him over. Why would they do that?
Who?
Are you back, Salty?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
back.
Alexa, stop. She was keeping us entertained with her funky jazz music.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my grandson apparently needs to come home from school, so my son's going to bring him home in a few minutes, so I had to get him to do something. All right, so getting back to this document here. I think I'm good now. All right.
We were talking about the traffic stops in Indiana and whether or not we thought that he was being tailed. And if he was, what was the purpose of those traffic stops, like back to back?
To make sure, well, because I think they were following him, and you need to verify that that's your guy that you in the car, and you walking up with the body cam and establishing that versus just following him. You know, there was a news report that came out that even said a fixed wing plane was involved at some point. But I do think they were, and I think those were verifiable stops. And I'm basing that on stuff I've seen in other crime investigations. Don't know that occurred here. They just got lucky and got 2 stops. Or I don't know what the point of the back-to-back Indiana stops would have been, though. You know what I mean? And we do know he was captured on a license plate reader in Colorado, and they searched a database on that. So that then I'm like, well, were they really tracking him, or did they not? You know, were they not tracking him? And the 2 stops just were a coincidence back to back. If they were searching databases looking, you know, along the route he could have taken back to Pennsylvania. So I'm not sure. We have no confirmation either way if they were or weren't. It'd be interesting to find out. I mean, why, if you already have him named as a suspect, because I can't recall the day he left town again to go. We know December 19th was the first time they heard his name, so I got to look at the dates. You know what I mean? Anybody remember when he left Moscow or Pullman going back home with Daddy?
Oh, gosh darn. It was December. He was pulled over in Indiana, I think, on the 15th. So it had to have been like the 13th or 14th.
So they wouldn't, if they didn't have his name by then they weren't following him.
Right. Right.
Okay, so they're talking about their neurological evaluations. Defendant, as summarized in the January 23rd, 25th supplemental to response, discovery in the regarding the expert witnesses, and provides that mental conditions shall not be a defense to any charge of criminal conduct except expert evidence on the issues of any state of mind, which is an element of the defense. That's interesting. Except expert evidence on the issues of any state of mind, which is an element of the offense. Would that be like one of those heed the moment things, Joe, like over in Kentucky? In each of the witness summaries, the defendant specifically states the testimony is not intended to be a mental element defense pursuit to the Idaho Code, but rather this testimony about the state of mind, as well as factual defense testimony to anticipate testimony elicited by the state, as which the proposed testimony falls outside the mental condition evidence allowable under the code. There's some things in this document I got to look up. State of mind. The next one was a motion to exceed a page limit. We're not going to read that. And then they got an order granting to exceed. And those are just going to be like, you know, we need more pages to make our case. The judge granted and that during her Frank's motion. BK got pulled over on the 15th. So yeah, they didn't have his name to the 19th. Then they weren't following him then, right? Unless the FBI had it sooner and just didn't tell nobody. What time? Anybody remember the dates on those FBI grand jury subpoenas? That's on my note to really look at the dates on those again. State of mind when he ended up in a state he didn't live in a house he didn't live in. Give me a break. That's rich. All right. Let me see what else I wanted to show you guys. And there's not a whole lot else to present. Really, I did have the now. Oh, where'd the playlist go? Because we haven't really. There's just some things that I like. I was going through some of my old stuff last night, and just like old interviews, old news clips, the press conferences, you know, Dr. Mabbitt's stuff. Joe, have you ever seen any of the video cam or body cams taken from the home when the police have showed up for parties?
I have not. I have seen body cam of people nearby that were stopped, like students that were stopped nearby, that the cops are like, "Are you drunk? Have you been drinking? Have you been to a
Oh
party?"
yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that, but I have not seen any of the ones at the actual house. No.
So this is the night they came up, and I believe it was Xana who come to the door, and it just it gives you an idea of how many people were always in that house. You know what I mean? How much DNA was in that house. Hitler gave her 20 pages instead of 10. He doesn't want to read Anne's BS. He's like, slow your roll, girlfriend. Cut them pages down. Them 100 and something pages of nonsense you're coming at me with.
Hey, turn the music down. Turn the music down. Hey guys, second time. I need somebody to come to the door.
All right, we'll get someone to come to the door.
Music stays off. Party's over.
Yes, sir.
Megan, I have her information. I have her cell phone number too.
Call her.
Okay.
Hello, miss. What's your name?
Xana.
Xana, do you live here?
Yes.
Hey, did Megan talk to you earlier?
Megan Mogan?
Maddie Mogan.
Madison Mogan? Yeah.
Madison Mogan? Okay, she does live here?
Sorry, she is at the club. She's 21. I'm just going to bed. I have a couple friends over, but
Okay.
this is my ID.
Have you talked to Maddie tonight?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
She's at the corner club.
Okay. Did she tell you anything about anything that happened earlier or anything like that?
Honestly, not really. I've just been here the past hour.
Okay. Okay.
Just trying to go to bed.
Can I grab your ID from you? If you
Yeah,
will run
I'm
her?
not 21.
Okay.
My roommates are 21. I just came to go to bed.
We're not here to talk about the alcohol stuff, okay?
Okay, yeah.
But this is the same noise complaint we've had here tonight within 2 hours.
I'm sorry
Okay.
about that.
So this time it was the blonde gal and the guy on the back porch playing music. Okay. So
I sincerely apologize about
Okay.
that. I'm just going to bed.
Okay. So just so you understand, you could be getting a misdemeanor citation for this, which means you have to go in front of a judge and explain why you couldn't keep the people in your house quiet.
Okay.
Okay? We've already talked to Maddie once and told her the same thing. Okay? The only reason she's not getting a ticket is because she's not standing here in front of me. But I'm telling you right now, if we have to come back, you're getting a ticket.
Okay, so
you
I'm
will have to
not
go
right
see a
now.
judge.
I'm fine right now.
You're not getting a ticket right now.
I'm just trying to go to bed right
Okay.
now. I mean, I understand you guys. You're coming here. I'm just going to bed.
Okay. Well, understand that you're responsible for the residents.
Okay.
So whoever else is here, if they have a safe way to get home, you need to kick them out.
Okay.
Or tell them to come inside and be quiet.
Okay.
Because the houses that are on this hill all the way around here, we can hear you from clear down the road when we were coming up here. We can hear the music.
Okay.
And that's
I'm so sorry.
where we're past the point of having polite conversations, okay?
I'm
Because
so
neighbors are being
sorry.
kept up. Okay?
I'm sorry. It's just like
Is the blonde gal and the guy up there, are they roommates too?
I'm sorry. What?
The blonde gal and the guy that's upstairs, are they roommates too?
None of my roommates are home. I'm
Oh, okay.
the only one home. These are all my friends.
Okay.
So do you understand 100%
I understand.
what's going to
I'm just
happen?
going to tell everyone, get the sorry.
No, you're fine.
Or figure it out.
And I'm not saying that you got to tell everybody they have to leave, but I'm telling you, any outside music, any loud yelling needs to be done.
Okay.
Because we're not. Next time you're getting a ticket.
Okay.
Okay. And if you get a misdemeanor citation, the university is not going to take kindly to it.
Yeah.
So not only do you have to go see a
completely
judge.
understand that I've never had to deal with this ever.
Yep. And we don't want to start now. I don't ever remember having come here, so I understand you guys are having to get together, but people have a way of
Yes.
taking the invitation and using it as an excuse to get out of control and be loud.
Advantage. Yes,
Exactly.
I understand.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. I just hope for your sake that your friend don't put you in a position where you get the citation and you have to go. Do I get a good phone number for her?
Yep. And just remember, the Dean of Students office will probably be contacting you about this as well. Okay. Yep. About student code of conduct issues.
Yes, I have. What's the telephone number for you? Susanna,
Of
here's your
course.
ID back.
Thank you so much.
Any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Make sure your friends don't put you in a bad position. Tell them it's time to be done.
I'll go-
Okay.
There's like no one in there.
Yeah. It was the two that were around the back. We had to holler at them to turn the music down. So,
Thank
alrighty.
you guys. I'm so sorry.
Nope, that's all right.
So that was the one with Xana. We got one of Kaylee. I don't think Brian had an accomplice. If he did, he's covering for that accomplice. Remember, he was out riding around by himself in the other direction. So I've always wondered, if he did do this and he did have an accomplice, what's so special about them that he's willing to not just try to pin it on them, right? Like, hey, I was there, but I just gave that person right there a ride there. Oh, wait, I didn't realize I had so many videos saved. Where'd it go? Oh, here it is. Jesus. Okay. Now this one starts off down the road from King Road, and they approach this party first for a noise complaint, and then everybody thought it was suspicious that they decided to walk up the road toward King Road. They're just patrolling around the neighborhood, in my opinion. They hear the noises coming from all the different houses, so everybody was getting it that day at that time.
I'm one of them. You guys were born to noise last night, sounds like. Really? And you guys were having a party last night. We weren't here last night. Last night we didn't do anything. So there's Elaine Shepherd that lives here. Who's Elaine Shepherd? The person that was born for the noise last night. Yeah. Okay. Well, one thing I will tell you is we didn't do anything last night. No worries. Neighbors are calling in again saying the music's good. Okay. You guys do turn it down. Sure. Sounds good. That being said, the tickets get expensive. We got to come back out here. The music keeps coming up and neighbors keep calling. Understand that. Yeah, we'll definitely turn it down. I mean, you're probably off, maybe like very low volume. But we'll definitely turn it down. You can have a party. You can have some music. Just not loud enough for people are calling in saying, hey. Sounds good. No worries.
Yeah, we should have. I know we were going to go talk to them before. But
yeah, maybe do a lap with your neighbors.
Yeah, we should do that next time.
That's a good idea. Yeah. You live here? I'm one of them. Okay.
Yeah, we're both
grab your name. My name's Elliot, E-L-L.
Can y'all hear this one okay, Jeff? You did an audio on these body cams over there on you got them on your channel probably, huh? I haven't really looked at. I thought I looked at all the stuff you had over there.
IOTT, and then Lund, L-U-N-D-H. Middle initial? I have two middle names. P.F.
I'm gonna fast forward. Okay, so now they're walking up toward the King Road.
Moscow 111.
And you guys can get an idea of the road. Here's the 1122 right here on the right where the ring camera was. Thanks, Dolphin. And then right behind it sits the King Road house. And of course, these are the houses across the street are the apartments, and that's that concrete stairway that leads up right in front of the house.
Right, and back on the other side of that tree is a
We're clear of 1127 King Road.
Right past this truck, this King
Yes.
Road house to the right, and the little road in between it, and this is the Queen Road apartments here on the right.
Right, exactly.
Where he circles around, or where suspect vehicle 1 circles around.
We're going to be out at 1122 Queen Road. Same problem. Someone out who lives here, please? Sorry, you can always call us later and ask in case it gets turned in here. It's our business line.
Sweet, thank you.
You bet.
Now notice the fence goes down that side of the property and then it goes around behind this property, not around the King Road property. We had someone trying to tell us that this property was fenced in at King Road and it was not.
No one's coming to the door.
You knock at the front door. Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I took one look at that speaker. I said,
You got a lot of guys trying to argue private property access.
the way I've always done it, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was the way I did it there. Find one responsible, have everyone else hold them accountable. If I got to come back here, they're getting the ticket. Because then it's on them to nip everyone else in the bud.
Yeah,
and remember, this is the back sliders. They go right into the kitchen where they believe he probably entered and exited the home, because right behind all that's the little parking lot there at the Queen Road Apartments.
They don't come out, we just contact landlords. Or we come back the next day or the next time you work.
Yeah.
And just note that lack of cooperation does not go a long ways with us.
Yeah.
I thought the same thing, Firefly.
Huh. Yes.
What is that, y'all? There's where he would have come down, right? From the parking lot back there, if that's where a suspect vehicle went parked, but it looks that way from the Linda Lane footage, and would have been able to come down the slope, and you could have got really close to that house without being way out here to be seen. You know what I mean?
Stairs to the back. Interesting.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this your place?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know why we're here?
I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there.
Yeah.
Nothing against having a party. Once neighbors start calling in, they have an issue.
Fair.
You go to school?
Yeah.
Okay. What year?
Senior.
Senior. Okay. So I'll tell you the same thing I told them. You probably know the drill, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. So usually, at least for me, I'll give you a verbal warning.
Okay.
Once I have neighbors calling in, it's too loud. You're disturbing peace.
Yeah.
Nothing against having parties. Nothing against having people over who will drink. But again, once we start disturbing the neighbors, then we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Always take it as up to 300.
Yeah, somewhere around 300, 400 bucks.
It's a pretty expensive ticket. I don't want to give that to you. That being said, this is your place, so I'm going to hold you responsible.
They get it more expensive the later it gets.
Yeah.
So
We already warned them too, so.
And if I do have to come back here, $300 ticket's going to be away.
Okay.
And it only gets more expensive. So fair.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
Actually, what's the phone number for you? Is this 1120 here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd much rather you spend that $300 on beer or something fun.
Yeah,
Noise,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That being said, warnings, don't do it again.
Yep.
I'd hate to come back in a few hours and have the issue there. So, questions for me?
No.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
Take care.
Yeah, Jeff, Xana had her ID out ready too. They knew what was up. They already knew what was up, didn't they? Get that ID ready and show who you are. There's one more, and in this one, there appears to be nobody home who lives there, yet there's a large party going on in their house. So it just makes you wonder who really could have had access to that house without being undetected. Do you know what I mean? You got a lot of people in there. I think if most people know each other or of each other, you might notice that one weird random dude that's walking around being all crazy. So I'm not suggesting he ever was at the house, but once I saw this, I was like, how many times did that ever happen? Okay, let me get this screen up. All right, so this is another incident where they were called to the house. Does it have volume? It should. Yeah, that's kind of normal, procedure. Because if they scan it, it can come back with any activity, like do you have warrants and all that shit. They always run your ID. You hand them an ID, they're gonna run it.
How are you? We're not actually. I don't know who lives here. No, I don't.
You guys haven't been drinking or anything, right?
No.
Okay, drive careful, okay?
Will do, thank you.
Did they?
I can go get them real quick.
This is what the other group had that ran away.
Oh, really? Just ditched it? Awesome.
Yeah, those ones kept walking in the car, and the other one.
Nice Truly's for the win. Moscow 157. Got it 1122 Queen Road. Yes. That's hilarious. Like as soon as they notice the cops, everyone does the same thing. They're like, they just like blend into the darkness.
It's a normal day.
This is regular day. We spend a lot of time doing this, and students are here. Yeah. I saw that. Yep.
We're only here for a noise complaint. Come to the damn door.
These things like frustrating. You're like, we'll figure out who lives here eventually.
Yeah. Let me go around back. I'll be undercover.
Yeah.
Oh, you want that?
Oh, hey.
So if they just don't come to the door.
What's that?
Well, if they don't come to the door.
I mean, it's not really the issue, probably, but so they're all mostly students, so the campus officers can figure out who lives here, and then honestly, it's a lot worse for them if they don't come to the door. Pretty frequently, like if they, campus will, if students get in.
Like it's taken a really long time, for people to come to the door. There's a lot of people in that house, though, but none of them are there. So my grandson just got home, but I'll let this keep playing.
Trouble, they will, if they get in trouble at campus, it's actually honestly for like minor stuff. Campus will hammer, like suspend them or kick them out altogether. They've had several kids like get super hammered and fall off balconies over the years and stuff and die, so they take it pretty serious. Children.
Come to the door, guys. Send whoever lives here down to the door. We're not leaving. We can also see you.
Abandoned property. Moscow 157. Do we have any recent involvements at 1122 Queen?
No one's here. No one's here. No one's here. So everyone here is trespassing? Well, no one's here is trespassing, but no one else is here right now. So where'd they go? They're just not here. I have no clue. No clue. So you guys just don't party in their house at this time? They're not here right now. They left and went over to some other party, and everyone is about to I just searched over to another party. Who does? Where they're? I am actually not sure. I live across the street. I just came over. I haven't been drive. Male, female. I think it's like
That's going on.
I don't know if they're. I don't. So I guarantee they're associated with this one. Many of them are living here at Kansas Campus Warehouse. I've been a cop for 22 years here. Like I'm games with me. I'd rather deal with this as a noise complaint. They can hold the pre-council, the report, and all of that.
Yeah, almost all college students.
People up on the hill probably didn't know most of them.
Yeah. And this is kind of like a fishbowl in here, so if they get party, it echoes crazy.
You guys are unlawfully entered because no one lives here is here. Okay, right? We'll go get to verify that there was a party here.
The fishbowl and the echoes. How many times have we heard that?
We'll go get a phone number. We'll be right back. Sorry, we're not trying to make your life. I understand. I just letting you know this is how it's going to play out. I'm not going anywhere until I talk to someone. We're not going to just know what's leave the door open for us. That way we can get some sort of communication between us. And no one knows here right now. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. And hey guys.
See, that kid just told him nobody that lives here is here right now. So could you imagine having all these people in your house while you're, partying and you're not there? I mean, maybe like one or two friends, 3, 4, whatever, you're good friends, and I'm not home yet, so you guys just chill. But a whole house full of people, that to me was like, that's a little risky, but I guess they all trust each other because they're all college students and they're friends and whatever. Yeah, Jeff, and I think that, and that's where people started getting that from, right? Because we heard it's a fishbowl and it echoes. How could they not hear this and not hear that? Yeah. Whoops. I'm not going to start that over. But that was just to show you guys that there was always a numerous amount of people in and out of that home. Yeah, it's a shame. Will we ever, I know there doesn't always have to be a motive, like an actual legit, I'm doing this because I'm jealous. There's always a motive. People's like, there's no motive. How do you know? There's always a motive. It may not be a jealous lover type deal motive. It might be a psycho mind motive. You know what I mean? So I would love to figure that part out. If it was because I was stalking one or became obsessed with somebody, or just because I was obsessed with the act of the crime itself, Yeah, Paradise Creek. So that is where, okay, because somebody was trying to tell me the other day they have him on camera on Paradise Creek. I was like, no, it's near Paradise Creek. But like you're saying, Paradise Creek at Stadium Drive and Highway 8. And Stadium Drive and Highway 8 absolutely are mentioned in the camera footages. So now I can explain that to them a little better. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Jeff. Because they were trying to say he went down Paradise Creek and this and that happened. I'm like, nah, it's not even in the timeline, but okay. Do you, boo? Jesus. Anyway, well, guys, I'm going to cut this off now. My grandbaby is at home and he's not feeling good, so I'm going to go check on him and do all the things that needs to be done there. I appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out and chatting with us and looking at the new documents. Dolphin, thanks for letting me know they did get uploaded, so we were able to take a look at them pretty quickly there. Interesting documents, so we'll see what the judge decides on those. Will he take his time making those decisions? I don't know that he will, because he wants to keep his scheduling order pretty much in good standing, so he can get this thing going by August. Some like to drive around at night alone because they've got a handful of possible houses they could do something awful in. This is true. You never know. You never know. Joe, do you have any thoughts before we go on anything? Did Joe leave me? Joe's like, I'm bored with your body cam stuff. I'm out.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I've learned something every time we dive back into this. Every time.
Yeah, 12 gauge. We just went over the new motions. When I went live, they were still on the case summary, but while I was live, Dolphin let me know that they had actually been uploaded. So after I went live, they uploaded. So yeah, we went and took a look and read those. Well, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. And I need you now that I've been blocked by so many others. Jeff, I never was one of those ones that hated on you or blocked you. I know all the hell you caught and received from people, dude, but you never bothered me. So you're always welcome here. You always had legit, conversations to bring. It just didn't fit the narratives. People didn't want to hear it. I was part of that. I know they not that like come out and attack people. I was one of those attacked for having a different thought than other people sometimes. So it's like with V here. We love her. Where'd she go? Did V leave us? Thank you, Forrest. And always thank you for modding and doing all that you do for me here. I do appreciate you. All right. Anyway, so I'm going to go, guys, and take care of the grandbaby and all that good stuff. Joe, you going live in the morning? What you got planned for us?
Oh, we got some stuff to go over. We got some stuff.
Okay, we got some stuff.
Yeah, I won't go over Draymond Green again. Like,
oh God,
I kind of feel bad because I didn't give a warning label before I went into that. I should have been like, okay, if you don't want to hear Joe, using adult language and going off, then just fast forward 10 minutes or mute out for 10 minutes.
Adult
so I kind of feel bad.
Oh, look, I'll put up my people know I be cussing. Y'all know it. I try not to cuss over there on Joe's. I think he's got this language policy he's trying to abide by, which is hard for me sometimes. So I try to be real careful. It's like, I got to stop and think about what I'm about to say. It's not my channel. But, yeah, that was the cussing doesn't bother me. It was the NBA, y'all get it together over there, man. Y'all get it together, NBA.
No, all they care about is money. They're not going to get it together. No.
Thanks, 12 gauge. I was asleep last night and I missed when you were live. I usually go in over there at night and hang out for a little while with them guys. All right, guys. Sub up to 12 gauge, sub up to Joe. Y'all go follow and do all the things. Turn your notifications on so you'll know when they're going live. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you all for watching this here video. Please like and subscribe and follow. Much love from Little Yas to each